Call the meeting of the Londonderry Town Council for January 17, 2011 to order. Please stand and join me in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our men and women serving us both here and abroad, and also call to your attention to yesterday night was the 20th anniversary of Desert Storm, so keep in your thoughts and prayers the veterans of that war, the ones who came home and the ones who didn't. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, our first order of business is public comment. I'd like to ask Meg Seymour to come forward. She has a brief announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just Meg Seymour, Town Clerk, Tax Collector. Just a reminder about our upcoming elections. Sign-up period is going to begin this coming Wednesday through next Friday, so January 19th through the 28th. Again, positions that are available is there are 2 counselor positions for a 3-year term, 3 budget committee positions for a 3-year term, 2 positions for the trustees of the Leach Library, those are also a 3-year term, and 1 position for the trustees of the trust fund for a 3-year term. So you need to make sure you're a registered voter as of tomorrow. The supervisors will be holding a session tomorrow evening. Bring your birth certificate or passport to show that you're a U.S. citizen, something with your Londonderry address like a utility bill or a driver's license or a car registration to prove residency, and you can register to vote, and then you can come and see me on Wednesday and sign up.
What are the hours of the town clerk's office for those who are interested?
8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Okay. Is there any other public comment at this point that's unrelated to the budget? We're still in a public hearing, so as we go through the budget, you'll have an opportunity to comment at that point. Any other?
I have something.
Okay. John?
Okay, so I attended the farewell ceremony for the engineering brigade out of Londonderry on Saturday. There were 171 people who were being deployed to Afghanistan. It was there were probably 1,500 to 2,000 people in the gymnasium at Southern New Hampshire University. The governor attended, did a nice speech. Representatives from many of the United States senators and congressmen were there. And if you haven't attended one of these in the past, I very much recommend you attend one in the future. It's quite moving to see that these people are giving up 1 year of their life and going overseas to protect our freedoms.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Moving on into our public hearing. So we do not need to move to open public hearing since we continued the public hearing from our January 3rd meeting. So we are technically still in public hearing. So a couple things about, just to kind of level set where we're at. We went through 3 different departments. We're going to pick this one up with Public Works. However, before we get started with going to Yanis to make his presentation on Public Works, I would like to go through a couple things that we're going to institute so that we make sure we get through the public questions and so forth. We want to keep the budget portion of this meeting to no later than 10:30 p.m., so it's 7 p.m. now. We'll take public comment as follows. After the department has made any presentation, if any, we'll go to the town council and the budget committee, see if they have any questions or comments. Then we'll go to the public. We'll allow Londonderry residents to speak first, and then every person should get a chance to speak once before we start going back and hearing people for a second time. Non-residents will get a chance to speak after Londonderry residents have spoken. Each speaker will get 3 minutes. If you need more than 3 minutes, you'll have to go back and come back to continue your questions. And we're also going to limit each department portion of the budget to 45 minutes total. So, and if the council wishes to overrule me at any point, we could certainly do that through council consensus. Okay. So with that, I turn it over to Dave to go into our next section, which is Public Works, Public Works, which consists of the Public Works Department itself as well as solid waste. Dave?
All right, thanks, Paul. As a reminder, your budget calendar calls for a final hearing on February 3rd, which means the council needs to give me their budget as recommended for that final hearing this evening.
Okay.
And then we'll post that, and that public hearing date is preceded by 2 days by the statutory deadline of February 1st for citizens petitions. Again, they require the signatures of 25 registered voters. And they have to be not only residents, but also registered voters. And we encourage anybody who's thinking about submitting a petition to try to send them to us so I can have it reviewed by legal counsel, so there are no legal issues with the wording, particularly after one's signatures are received. So, as you discussed, this is a continuation of the first hearing, so the first item is Public Works. Janos Trzaskowski is here to answer any questions on the Public Works budget. The budget has been adjusted downward. Just getting into the dispatch issue for a minute is that we continue to review the feasibility and cost effectiveness of that program. And what I'm suggesting this evening is that we do not include it in the FY12 budget, but keep it as an FY12 goal. There are really two issues associated with combined dispatch at this point. One is that the transition costs are higher than what we had set for a $50,000 placeholder. And secondly, the time for implementation may be longer between now and July 1st. So, but, you know, as I discussed and presented to council previously, combined dispatch is not a novel premise. It's not a novel idea. It's been implemented successfully, both local, regionally, statewide, and nationally. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor we continue to work on. Now, in order to meet the council's directive of a flat tax rate, I'm recommending that we reduce the highway maintenance line item by $84,818. That number is essentially the savings that we anticipated to realize through the dispatch proposal, net of additional revenues, which we have identified at the January 3rd meeting. So now that that's being set, again, we have a schedule which has been distributed to the council and the budget committee, and also it's included in the package, is to continue the public hearing on those particular items which we do not have an opportunity to review at the January 3rd meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Janos?
Okay, and while Yanis is coming up, one thing I failed to mention is that we also have a bond hearing as well tonight, which is for the $1 million road reconstruction bond, which is something that we'll do after we go through the remainder of the town budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
quick comment. The town manager just mentioned about citizens petitions, about offering that the town would help look at the language of people's petitions, of citizens petitions for legality. And just to make it doubly clear, we've had issues in the past where folks have not taken advantage of that offer, and they've ended up submitting citizens petitions where the language was not legally enforceable. So we can't put that in front of the voters if the voters vote for something that can't be legally enforced. So it really is important. And let me reiterate: this is free legal advice for the petitioners. The town council's position is we're willing to pay for that for the citizens so that they can bring a legally robust petition forward. So keep that in mind if anyone is considering a citizen's petition, that the town will provide legal guidance as to the proper wording in that petition. The town manager already mentioned that. I just wanted to reinforce that.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have any additional presentation, whatever we had presented for the workshop, for the budget workshop. I'm here to answer any questions. I didn't come to ask you to restore whatever was put in the budget. I got the bad news today that additional $85,000 was cut. And the only thing I am requesting that you will remember that if 2013 budget will come, that these are temporary cuts. We cut probably 14 items in my budget to meet that 5%, which was like 165,000, and now it's additional. So it's $250,000 was cut from highway, from Public Works Department, and that's mostly, from the Highway Department, so Highway Division. So I'm asking you to remember next year that we can survive with these kind of cuts and then operate, that this might be, we can survive for 1 year, but we can't have this budget as a permanent budget. So these are the cuts that we made just to survive the bad times.
Thank you.
And the presentation that I have is for the bond, that I set it up for road bond. So that will be when the public hearing for road bond, not
Okay.
for the budget.
Questions from the council?
Didn't really have any.
Mike or Tom? John? Okay. Any questions from the Budget Committee to Yanis? That's all set. Mark, Lisa, you guys, any questions?
Dan?
Yeah, okay. Oh, Dan, there you go. How's the rest doing? Excellent. Okay.
At least you can
All right.
sing.
Yes, maybe just stay there in case anyone from the public has any questions. Anyone from the public have any questions regarding the Public Works budget?
Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. Why was the budget cut $84,818? Additionally,
Originally, we had anticipated savings with the combined dispatch of about 93,000 and some change. As I just discussed a few minutes earlier, that proposal has been delayed. It will not be part of the FY12 budget, so we had to find in net $84,818 in additional expenses to maintain the council directive of a level funded tax rate.
how much is the cost going to be for combined dispatch?
How much is the cost going to be?
Yes.
We anticipated the costs would be about $235,000 plus $50,000 one-time expense for transition costs. That was the original estimate.
Well, where's the rest of the money going to come from?
Well, a vast majority of that money was not taken out of the budget. It was transferred from the fire department to the police department.
I thought that transfer was because there's a fire inspector that was going.
That's a different
That's a different one?
part of the budget. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public regarding the Public Works budget? Okay. Solid Waste?
Any comments on solid waste?
I don't
This is a line item which we did increase somewhat, anticipating additional usage as the economy improves, we all hope. And so the budget reflects that, and there are no changes in the method by which we either collect or dispose of the solid waste for FY12. I don't know if you can add anything else, Janos, or?
No,
It's
solid
pretty
solid
straightforward.
waste, all contractual items, so nothing could be changed over there, so. The only thing increase was over there for the growth of the town, just anticipated growth of the town, and then all the anticipated, tonnage was just what we predicted before with the contract, and that's it. So there's nothing very much that could be adjusted over there.
Questions from the council regarding solid waste? Any questions from the Budget Committee? Okay, any questions from the public regarding the solid waste budget?
Martin Trugas, 17 Wimbledon Drive, also a member of the Solid Waste Committee. If we were to increase our recycling efforts from, what's it now, 21%?
Everything's under.
If we were to go, say, up to 50%, 55, would we save anything on the tipping fees?
Whatever we take from the solid waste and transfer to recycling. Recycling is a fixed number, it's fixed fee. So whatever we take it away from garbage, it will be savings because we're paying per ton.
Okay, well, there's the challenge to the town, considering that we don't recycle enough. Some people don't recycle at all. This is something everybody in town can contribute to, and increase the amount of stuff that they put into the red bins or the recycling bins to help cut down on the solid waste disposal fees. It's a relatively easy fix and shouldn't cause a lot of pain considering what the last meeting was like, but that's my suggestion out there.
Well, we advertise, we always, promote recycling. We do everything possible to increase that because we pay $72 per ton for each, ton we dispose. But for recycling, it's a fixed number, $480,000, regardless of tonnage. So we want to transfer as much as possible. That's the whole idea, was the whole contract.
Any other questions from the public regarding solid waste? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Thank you, Jens.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to general government. And Dave,
Right, general government includes the areas of town council, town manager, moderator, budget committee, legal, general government, cemetery, conservation commission. A couple notable changes from the current fiscal year is that you may recall that a position in my office was reduced to part-time with a reevaluation to see the effectiveness. The position will remain at part-time, and also, frankly, with the incumbent we've hired, it's worked out very well, whereby part-time seems to serve our needs at this particular time. There's also a transfer of a part-time position in general government to community development, whereby that second staff person is now being fully funded from that particular line item. And the other line items are relatively the same, with some reductions to try to meet the council's directive of a level tax rate.
okay. Any questions from the council regarding general government? And I will, instead of breaking this down into each individual one, we'll do it all batch. John, any questions from the budget committee regarding general government? That's all set. Okay, questions from the public regarding general government? So this covers town council, town manager, moderator, budget committee, legal, general government, cemetery, and conservation commission. Okay, seeing none, come back to the council. The next section is finance and administration, so I don't know if yourself or...
Covers a number of different areas. First is finance and administration, which reflects the reduction of a full-time position to a part-time position. Assessing reflects the reduction of a full-time staff support position to a part-time position. Town clerk includes the elimination of one full-time position. IT reflects the new, or the contract with our new contractor consultant at a lower price. Insurance is part of our participation in a health, this calls for a risk pool. General assistance is reflective of a, I believe it's a 25% reduction in assistance to outside agencies, along with some other modifications. And debt service simply is a reflection of paying for the FY12 budget and our current debt load.
Okay. Questions from the council? Sure.
Dave, on the insurance, it's kind of a small amount, but was there any particular reason that it went up to $9,000?
Well, we are currently in a pool with local government center, and we have had stable rates for the last dozen years. They essentially use their undesignated fund balance to list stable rates. Well, now most of the fund balance has been exhausted, so now they have to increase their rates somewhat. I will say, though, that with cooperation with our employees and collective bargaining units, we did seek proposals on new coverage or alternate coverage for health, for property liability and workers' comp. We received those on Thursday. As you can imagine, they're pretty involved. So we hope to complete the analysis on those this week and then meet with our employee groups to look at the ramifications of considering a change in health. Simultaneously, staff, myself and Sue, will be looking at whether it makes sense to continue with our current property liability carrier and our current workers' comp carrier. So we'll have those analyses completed by the council's final public hearing.
All right, thank you.
Other questions from the council? Mike?
Yeah, on the general assistance, 169,680, you mentioned that's inclusive of the social service and nonprofit agencies that the budget committee vets with. What's the difference? Because they're dealing with, 80,000 or 75,000, whatever it is at this point.
Right. The balance deals with general assistance. State law requires that whomever is in need and resides in the community, we are obligated to assist those folks. This is another position where it used to be a full-time town position to manage that program, and we've outsourced that for the last 3 or 4 years with Community Health Services out of Derry. And that partnership's been very beneficial in that they're very knowledgeable of other sources and have successfully leveraged a lot of aid sources for our needy citizens.
Okay. Follow-up question. The budget, with your the second budget memo you gave us, Dave, when we asked you to put an SRO back into the schools and fund the crossing guards, one of the subsequent reductions to make up that 120,000, whatever it was to further reduce the social service agencies that the Budget Committee met with by 13,475. I believe the Budget Committee was supportive of the way you were addressing our goal, except for that area. So I'm wondering if this number, 169,680, has that 13,475 reduction in it?
It does.
It does?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think it's important to note that when the Budget Committee raised that to the council, they did so in a manner such that they were supportive of the direction that we were heading in, supportive of what you've come up with that one caveat. And just as one council member, I'm appreciative that the Budget Committee has been supportive to this point, and I would like to find some other way to come up with that 13,475 versus taking it from this group, if that's going to, cause the Budget Committee to not be as supportive as they have up to this point.
Yeah, I'm just simply awaiting direction from the council on
Yeah.
that particular policy
Yeah,
issue.
I guess that's my direction as one person. I just wanted to clarify that that was still in there,
Right.
that
Yeah,
reduction.
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Other questions from the council regarding finance and administration? Tom? Okay, we'll go to the Budget Committee.
I would just take the moment to reiterate Mike's point. I want to thank him very much for that position, and I know the Budget Committee is very concerned about, while that is not a large amount, it is a group of people that do have a disproportionate impact on the well-being of those people that really need it in this town when things are in crisis. So I would appreciate it if the town council would step forward
Okay.
and do that. Thank you.
Tom? That's all set? All right, I'll go to the public for any questions regarding the finance and administration portion of the budget. Yes.
Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. Under Finance and Administration, you said you eliminated one full-time person, and you have one part-time, but the budget only reduced by 3,400. Where else did it increase?
Yeah, to clarify, Sue will handle that, but one of the full-time positions was reduced to a 32-hour per week without benefits.
Without benefits.
That's correct.
So, but there's only a reduction of $3,400.
That's right, and Sue's going to go through that. Be a minute.
There are a couple other employees within the department who had a change in insurance benefits, where in the past they didn't need the insurance and they needed to elect coverage in the upcoming year, so that is the majority of the increase.
Isn't that covered under the insurance?
In the insurance line, a couple people opted out of insurance in previous years, and their circumstances changed where they needed to add the insurance, which is a cost of the community.
Well, I'm talking about under the Finance and Administration insurance. Doesn't that cover all of the insurance?
That only covers general liability insurance. Health insurance for our employees is funded under each individual department.
Okay. Well, you should have general liability insurance on that line, because it looks like it might include health insurance. Thank you.
Any other questions from the public regarding finance and administration? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Okay, our next section is community services.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Quick
Tom?
question. Sue, can you tell us on the debt service, what's the next bond that's going to come off, and when?
We have hang on a second. This is- We have a multi-purpose bond, which is the open space, traffic light, and West Road. That's the next to come off, which is in fiscal year 13. That'll expire. The original was 1.6 million of that. It was back in 2002, it's a 10-year. So that's the next bond to come off of the schedule.
So that's the year after this budget.
Yeah, so the next budget cycle will reflect a lower debt service, although it could increase if there's any additional.
Yes, the last payment is next year, FY '13. So FY '14, there would not be a payment for
Okay.
that. That's about 165 with principal and probably about 175,000 during the.
Okay, so the next, not only this budget, but the next budget cycle as well, will have a payment for that debt service. It would be the
That's correct.
following year,
The following year.
not. So it technically could go down unless any additional bonds are added.
We're talking approximately 300K a year in savings when that bond comes off.
The principal payment's 165,000 for that particular bond, and the interest is probably about 10,000 for that year. So 175 will come off.
175 will come off, okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding finance and administration? Okay. On to community services.
Okay, community services consist of 4 programs. First is family mediation, which has been staffed by a part-time department manager, and that program is slated for elimination in this year's, in the FY12 budget. Recreation, we did bring to the council's attention an error in the recreation budget. It should be 136,624. 136,624. And the senior affairs budget has essentially been level funded. Given the small program funds which the senior affairs department has, I did not apply any reductions. I think the reductions you're seeing are with result to changes in some insurances. However, there have not been any reductions in either staffing or expenses. And I believe the library trustee and library director are here to explain any reductions or answer any questions on the library budget.
Okay. Questions from the council regarding these 4 items? Yes, Mike?
Yeah, Dave, I asked this the last time we spoke about, give me a second. Okay. The family mediation, the program was, it's my understanding the program was managed by this part-time person, but that the people who did the mediation were volunteers and that they used our facilities to hold the mediation sessions. Is it possible, if that group wanted to continue to do that on a volunteer basis, that they could use that space? I think I asked you before about that, whether that would create a problem or whether that we could offer that to them.
Yeah, if the family mediation program wants to continue as a volunteer service, we would have to make sure for liability reasons that
Right.
there's a qualified director to lead them. And if they so chose, we would find some space for them in the building.
Okay. Have you been approached at all about
I have
it?
not spoken with Joanna about that
Okay.
at this point.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Questions from the council regarding the mediation, recreation, library, or senior affairs? No? Budget committee? Done?
Thank you.
Yes.
I was curious as to the status of the custodial care at the library. How is that funded at this point?
It's a twofold answer. Basically, what we've been doing is we've been getting help from Steve Cotton, who's Dave's assistant, and we've also hired an on-call custodian. This person is called in only to do jobs where we would have to pay someone, a substantial increase in money. For instance, instead of hiring an electrician for $60 an hour, we call in this person. You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the Budget Committee? Okay, going to the public. Yep.
Catherine Bringhurst, 7 Watch Road, Londonderry, of course. I'm president of Friends of the Library, and we work hard to try and get enough money to help support our children and adult programs. With future cuts coming up, those children's programs that are so effective over the summer are in jeopardy. Last summer, there were over 1,700 children that participated. So the library is busy all day. And with future cuts of hours, what about the meeting room, where so many organizations use it? It's in the evenings for their meetings. It affects the whole community. It's not just the books, the DVDs, but it's the rooms that are used and the participation. I hope you'll consider not drastically cutting the money from the library. It's needed. It's a big part of our community. It's the free building that people can go to that are unemployed. Children can go. Magazines are there. It's got the lifeblood of the community in it. And I have a question, and perhaps it's rude and unnecessary, but I have to ask all of you, do you have a library card? Have you been in the library? Have you seen the children that come in after school? Have you been present to see 75 children at a children's program? Have any of you
Yes,
seen
ma'am.
or participated?
My children have used that particular program as they grew up, as they've gone into high school. Yes, they use the program.
Yes, I think it's wonderful. I think it's the envy of our state. And I just hate to see,
Now, may I ask you a question?
yes,
Okay, I empathize with your position, but I'll ask you the same question I ask everybody else. It's $34,000. Do you have any suggestions where I should go look for that instead of taking it from the library? I mean, because we got to get it from somewhere, and it's, we took 5% from everybody else. If we took 5% from the library, we'd be looking at $65,000. So we only took 2.5%.
I'm just asking no more future cuts other than what we've got.
So these we got here, these are okay?
No.
Well, I mean,
Lots of luck.
I'm just trying to understand what you're trying to say.
I'm just asking you to consider the library and its effect in the community.
Ma'am, I
Oh, I
understand.
thank you.
Okay.
But I didn't get an answer.
I'm
I'm
sorry to
sorry?
have to ask you those questions, but, got to ask
I
everybody.
fully understand. But again, I have to ask those of you who are going to be making the decisions, have you been in the library? Have you seen?
Ma'am, I don't want to poll the council. I will speak for myself that I do have a library card and I do go. in the
Thank you very
library.
much.
So, But I don't think it's proper to poll.
Okay, I
the
appreciate
council.
that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. Mr. Farrell, I'll answer that question you just asked.
Sure, that'd be great.
I know where you can find the $65,000.
Well, we only cut 33.
Yeah, but you said you needed 65.
No, I said if we did 5%, it would be 65,000. We only
Well,
cut-
I know where you can find $65,000
Where would I find that?
by not cutting the position for the training person in cable and following the recommendation that Dottie Grover said last week to take the $65,000 out of the reserve fund that she's holding. Then you would have an additional $65,000 to put towards the budget.
Okay, thank you.
And I am also a library trustee. It seems as though that the library budget is always at the end of the list of the hearings, but it's usually one of the first ones to get cut. Half of the library employees are part-time, so there are no benefits. The library usage has increased dramatically, especially since the economy has dropped. Our statistics are up in every department, in every use of the library. And it's the townspeople that are using the library because they have to cut their own personal budgets, so they're using the services that are available at the library for their own use. Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Any of these community service items? Mr. Shurius, just name and address again, please.
Martin Sarugas, 17 Wimbledon Drive. I know Pauline's not going to like this, but I know it's difficult to cut the library. On the other hand, you know, the whole state is looking at cuts, and I think we need to start here at the local level. It's difficult, but the economy hasn't gotten any better. You know, there's still a lot of empty businesses in town and everything else, and I think if everybody sacrifices a little bit from each department budget, I think it will go a long way. Besides the 5 part-time employees, I think they have 10 full-time employees. I mean, redirecting them to do other things, as they have been doing, I think is the way to go, and to be able to handle a lot of these difficulties. They could also request from the school. The school, I know, has electricians on hand and plumbers, and maybe they can lend a hand on occasion here and there for something really difficult. But I think this is a tough choice, but I think it's the right choice to make, and we need to go ahead. And I think in the long range, the library needs to start looking at the fact is, personally, I let my library card lapse. The internet, pretty much I can do a lot of research on the internet for what I need, magazines and things like that. I know some people don't have the money to do that, but the library is slowly becoming obsolete. It's going to eventually be replaced by computers, and you know, that day's still, you know, beyond where I am at. But I think, like I said before, it's a tough choice, but I think you need to make it.
Yep.
Hi, Barbara Ostertag, Holdcamp Library Director. I just want to say, when you're thinking about cutting the library, you have to think about what you're actually cutting. In the tough economic times, we have more usage, so you're cutting a significant amount from the library. It's not $37,000, okay? It's more like $137,000, because it was 5% reduction from last year. Then it was an additional $25,000 cut from the town manager. Then when you were looking to fund the school resource officer, another $7,803 got cut from the library budget. So it's not the $30,000 you're talking about. But I want to say, you have to think about, what are you actually doing? You're trying to keep a flat tax rate because the economy is bad. You're cutting a portion of that from the library. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying to think about what you're actually doing. So to save the taxpayer by that cut, whatever it translates, and Sue can tell you, although she just left the room, it's like $6 or $7, some small amount of money, you're actually going to make the library not accessible to the people who do come in and look for jobs and can't afford recreation in the community, who come to the library, who use the library as a community resource center to meet their neighbors, to get out, to talk. You know, people who are using for informational needs, for everything. So what you're doing is, you're actually, by cutting the library, you're actually hurting the people you're trying to help by keeping a flat tax rate. That's just the perspective for me. So, thank you.
Other questions?
Cindy Eaton, 16 Clark Road. It's, to my knowledge, almost every year the library gets cut. And yet the library keeps growing. More and more people are using the library. And I'm sorry, I strongly disagree with anyone who says that the library will eventually become no longer needed. That's just not true. There's a lot of people, including me and my husband, that prefer reading books, something that you can put your hands on. So, and there's a lot of us out there. And the kids coming up, yeah, they read books on computers, but my granddaughter also likes having her hand on a book to read. So the library will not ever be deleted from our society. So you think you need to keep that in mind. Also, as I said, it's the library that's been cut over and over every year. Back to even longer than 10 years ago, I was on the budget committee, and I was on the budget committee for 3 years, and every year the library was cut, and here it is being cut again. So I want you to consider that. I want you to consider the children. As you heard, 75, as many as 75 children show up for one of the programs. They need people to help with that. They also need people who are looking on the internet. They have computers there. And some people don't, believe it or not, some people don't have computers at home. And the only way that they're going to be able to access these ways of getting jobs and other information that they need is at the library. And if you cut all the people, who's going to help those who don't have computer skills and they need to look up things or go on to monster.com for jobs? So please consider that when you're making your decision. It's my understanding that there's a possibility with these cuts that the library will have to close on Saturdays. If that happens, there's a lot of people that work during the week, and the only time they're able to get to the library is on Saturday. So a whole section of the community would be losing a service that's very valuable to them and that they need. My husband happens to be one of those. He goes to the library quite frequently, and a lot of times he can't go in the evenings. Saturdays is the only day he can go. He goes to get books, he goes to get videos, he goes to get CDs, DVDs, so he uses the library for more than just books, for information on other things. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a couple of numbers. To support the employees of the library, and there are 10 full-time and 10 part-time, costs approximately $1 million. We're asking for a reduction of $33,000 from $1,304 to $1,271. The areas that have increased: medical benefits up $16,000, retirement benefits up $13,000. So that's $29,000 there in benefits. All right, increases in salary, $20,000. So that's $49,000. Just so we can level set on numbers. I respect the library, I respect what they do, but every other department has come in here and has had to sacrifice, and we are only asking, we're asking for less from the library than from almost anybody else.
Okay. Before I go to you, Barbara, any other members of the public who wish to speak? regarding the library or any of these other items? Barbara?
I just need to disagree with Counselor, the last comment, because I don't think if you look at the percentages and what's going on, that the library has had less cuts than the other departments. In fact, we have had more. When I just told you about Dave's additional cut, other than the 5%, and the 7803 to fund the school resource officer. So that is not correct. I
Excuse me,
would
Mr.
like to
Chairman.
say,
With all due respect, I'm reading exactly here, Barbara. 1,304,304 is the current budget. The proposed budget is 1,271,082. It's $33,000.
Well,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the number.
that's the number, but you have to know how you figure out a budget.
Ma'am, I do know how to figure
Well,
out a budget.
then
I'm
you
reading
know-
it right in front of me.
All right.
Well,
All right,
I'm
with all
just-
due respect, ma'am, this is about
All right, well, then
$33,000.
I'd like to read what the reductions are then, if I may, for the public, because this was our current reductions before anything else, to give that public information out. What we've had to cut. We've had to cut $34,254 from full-time salaries.
Barbara, can you just make sure you keep this to the 3 minutes, okay?
Okay, $34,254 to part-time salaries, $3,438 from electricity, $621 from heating fuel, $5,213 from maintenance repairs, $349 from printing, $45 from dues and subscriptions, $1,910 from seminars and workshops, $1,494 from general supplies, $2,853 from office supplies, $25,000 from books and periodicals, $1,076 from management services. And we also had the $25,000 reduction from the town manager after we did the 5% reduction, as well as the $7,803 reduction.
What's your total?
So,
And what's your total?
you want, right now? You have it right in front of you.
I do. And there's an increase of $49,000 to support the employees. I'm sorry, I'm just reading the numbers.
Okay, and what I'd like to say in terms of the retirement, like any other department here, we have absolutely no control what the state does with the retirement amounts. We can't control that.
You're right, you can't.
So,
Neither can
and
we.
that's what the reduction is, excuse me, the increase is, and every other department has an increase to there. You just heard a question brought up to the finance department in terms of if employee changes health insurance, there's an increase in that cost. There's
Yes.
projected increased costs in insurance, in dental. We have absolutely no control over that in terms of what the increase is.
I understand. I'm paying more this year, too.
Yeah.
Mine went up this week. I'm sorry.
I just want the public to know what the
I
numbers
want the
are.
public to know what the real numbers are.
That's,
The real number is increase in employee benefits, $49,000. Your reduction, $33,000. I'm sorry, that's just what it says.
But you-
I respect what you do, I respect the library, I think you guys do a great job, but those are the numbers.
So are you doing those numbers with all the departments like that? Are you, because I've yet to hear when that, another department's discussed that you've been doing the numbers like that. You've been saying every department's taking a 5% decrease, but now all of a sudden it gets to the library, and as you're trying to portray it, that we have not had a 5% decrease, which is ridiculous.
I'm sorry you feel that way, I'm reading the numbers in front of me. From year to year, it's a 2.5% decrease.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Well,
I'm sorry.
All right.
you'll have to get clarification from Dave in terms of how the budget was developed.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other comments from the public?
Martin Sugas, 17 Wimbledon Drive. I'm in the fourth year of no raise from the state as an employee. Every year as the tax rate goes up here, it takes out more and more of my disposable income. It gives me less and less chance to do other things. It's becoming tough, and I'm sure a lot of other people are facing that. Last week, somebody mentioned that there were 5 foreclosures. Well, I got a list here of 25 homes in foreclosures, and I'm sure most of you have seen the same thing. So I think if we're going to keep the eye on the 0 flat rate tax increase in the town, then every department is going to have to give up something. Everybody has to, I realize everybody has a vested interest in this, but everybody's going to have to give up something, as difficult as it is. My main concern in this budget cycle is that our safety services are not reduced to the point where we put people in danger. That's where the real problem lies. And I think, again, we got to keep an eye on the prize, and the prize is 0, flat tax rate. And this is what it's going to take. It's tough, but as the economy improves, hopefully in 2 or 3 years, then maybe, these things can be restored. But in the meantime, I think you need to stick to your guns.
Thank you.
Are you taking comments about the budget in general?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
We're still on community services.
Okay, I'll come back then.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to speak regarding community services? Okay. Bring it back to the council and the budget committee. Any other questions from the council? Tom?
Susan, Sue, do you have the prior year budgets at your fingertips?
Yes.
How far back do you go? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just have
For actual amount budgeted or expended?
budgeted. What the,
Fiscal year 10 for budgeted. For expended, I have back to fiscal year 07.
okay, an observation was made that we've been cutting the library budget year after year. Can you, right now, I know the 2011 budget was 1.3 million, and the 2012 proposed budget is cut, I think Councilor Farrell said about $30,000, so it's a little under 1.3 million.
33.
What was it in 2010?
1236179.
1,236.
179.
And what was it in 2000? That was 2009 or 10?
That was 10.
What was it in 2009?
For the budget amount, I'd have to run up and get it, so if you gave me 5 minutes, I could get you.
What's the expended amount?
Total amount expended for '09 for the library is 1236131.
In 2008?
1179937. Let me correct something, if I can. For fiscal year '09, expense was 1197598.
Okay, so if we look at the last 5 years, then, if you include 2012 proposed, 2008 was 1.18 million, 2009, 1.2 million, 2010, 1.24 million, 2011, 1.3 million, and 2012, 1.27 million. So it looks like the past 5 years, in actuality, 2012 is the only year with a budget where the numbers went down, at least projected right now, proposed to go down slightly. So while we heard, with all due respect, while we heard the budget has been cut year after year, that number has actually gone up year after year. And 2012 is the first time, at least in recent memory, that the budget year over year is going to go down. So I just want to correct, if that, for that public perception firms up in people's minds. Just want to counteract that with the actual facts of the expenditures. It might have felt like some cuts in that there was probably cuts from the proposed budgets that were proposed to the town manager and then to the council, but the actual amount of money did go up, maybe not as much as was originally requested, but it did go up, at least from looking back as far as 2008.
Mike?
Yeah, I do want to, Tom's bringing up a very good point, just from the standpoint of kind of level setting what we're doing this year versus what we've done in previous years. The amount of increase in the library budget has been reduced the last several years, but the budget has not been cut. It's two entirely different things, although the perception is that it hurts either way. In order for us to deliver to the taxpayer for the first time in my memory, okay, no increase in the town portion of your tax bill, it takes a hell of a lot to do that, $1.3 million. In order for the town manager to come up with that, he needs to take a broad brush approach. And yes, the pain has to be distributed. And in some way, shape, or form, it gets passed on to just about every department. You heard that the senior affairs was kind of level funded, so they escaped that, but their budget's nominal, and there appears to be a value there to retain that. We also had originally, the SROs removed from the budget, and we came to a policy decision that we wanted to put one back in, as well as fund the crossing guards. And again, the town manager needed to go find that money, a portion of which was a further reduction in the library budget. So yes, to deliver the taxpayer something that we haven't delivered in my memory, and which maybe we should do next year, I'll throw it out there, okay? This is what it takes. Each department is going to have to sacrifice to a certain degree, and when it comes to the library budget, the number that we provide goes to the trustees, and we've heard from a couple trustees tonight, or we heard from one, and then they make the decision on where that money gets allocated. They decide whether they're closing on Saturday. We don't. They decide whether they're going to close on Wednesday afternoon and not Saturday if the public gets hurt. That's a very important point here, is that the number that's delivered, yes, is less than last year. Yes, it's painful. Trustees now have to deal with that because that's their purview. We can't step into that. And they'll decide whether they close or not close, on what day they close and what day they don't close, and where the reductions are made. And it's difficult. It's definitely difficult.
Thank you. One of the things and I think I might have even said this to the library trustees in the meeting, is that the library is, as far as the budget is concerned, is a microcosm of the town's budget. And that when they go through the process, they, in an ideal process from their perspective, they would go through and come up with a default budget, which is contractual obligations that we have to meet, things we don't have control over. So whether it's insurance rates go up, on the town side, we have revenue, maybe we see more revenue, maybe we see less revenue, and all those things are taken into consideration to come with the default budget. So when you look at that process that I assume the library director and the library trustees went through, they came up with what they, based on what the things they didn't have control over, contractual agreements, insurance, as well as things that they felt, they wanted to do, whether it was, keeping programs running, buying books, things like that. And they came up with a budget. And then that was then scaled back to what we have today. And then this year, it's an actual cut. In the prior years, it wasn't a cut, it was just less than what they asked for, so. Barbara, do you have anything to clarify what I just said?
Yeah, just a very quick comment. Just for the sake of disseminating correct information, in fiscal year 2007-2008, the library budget was 1211909, and it was reduced the following year in fiscal year 0809 to 1203024.
Thank you. So it did go down in that, an actual reduction, but then
It went up.
went up, and now it's going down.
So it doesn't go down all the time.
Correct. Any other comments or questions from the council or the budget committee? Okay. Dave, the next item is special revenue funds, so should we be going to that? That was on your list
Yeah,
here?
there are two special revenue funds upon which the council has not yet received comment. I'll go to the second one first. Police outside details, which is funded totally through individuals, services, businesses which request that service. This is our best estimate. This is, like I said, a special revenue fund, so if all of a sudden there are no outside details and we spend $30 in the account, that's all we're authorized to spend, not $465,000, so it has no impact on the tax rate. The other one is the sewer division. The operating expenses of the sewer division is down about $6,000, and Janos can provide any additional information on that issue. Just as a reminder, we're recommending that the council increase the sewer division special revenue fund to $4,579,758 to account for the town's share of the EDA grant, which if received would fund the sewer extension to the Pettingill Road project. That grant is still outstanding. We've not received word whether we've been successful or rejected. However, it is a 50-50 matching grant, so the town's share should be reflected in the sewer division special revenue fund budget for FY12.
Okay. Questions for the council?
I do.
Sean, I'm sorry.
Chuck. Dave, when it comes to funding this, the matching grant, what is the recommendation? Is the recommendation to increase the sewer rates? Or what's, how are you?
No, thank you. The increased appropriation will be transferred from the undesignated fund balance of the sewer fund. And the thought process, as Pettingill Road is developed out, there will be sewer access fees imposed upon anybody connected to the sewer, and those funds will be put back into the fund balance to replenish that fund balance amount.
So Dave, just to clarify, there is a sewer unexpended fund balance that accrues every year or gets added to every year, whatever isn't spent to maintain that doesn't go into the general budget, that's kept in a separate account.
And that's used for sewer improvements such as upgrades, our proportionate share of upgrades to the Manchester treatment plant, any improvements to the dairy treatment plant. Since we don't treat our waste here, we just convey it to one of those two treatment facilities. And those funds are just added to, if we have a positive in the fund balance for that particular year, we add to it. And so the recommendation is to use some of that and then replenish it as industry and businesses connect to the Pettingill Road sewer and pay their access fee.
Okay, what's the balance currently for the sewer unexpended fund balance? In other words, we're not exhausting, we have some in there for emergencies.
Well, we do. This is a significant portion of it. We'll get that number to you.
They have to have at least 1.9 million in there,
Oh, yes, we do.
because that's what you're asking to transfer.
1.895, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So,
that was the question I had, so I was glad you brought that up, because
We have about 3.965
Okay.
currently. And we're anticipating a number of significant charges as our proportionate share for the upgrade of the Manchester wastewater treatment plant. That's why we've been building up that fund year after year.
okay. Mike?
So Dave, just,
1, 2 already, so 2.7 is undesignated.
rough numbers.
The
that we-
undesignated is 2.7, the overall is 3.9, because there is some that's already fenced, so it's 2.7 currently.
Okay.
Mike, did you have a?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Tom?
Sue, could you refresh my memory? I'm sorry, I forgot. Which line item was it that had the approximate $8,000 error in it?
There was recreation.
That was recreation budget. I think it was the part-time salary account.
That was already,
And that,
that was on the community services. Right there.
so that number should be approximately 136.
136624.
36624. Thank you.
Dave, a question regarding police outside details. So, as I understand, you said that this is just an estimated amount, so we're making assumptions about Verizon or any other company that is doing work that requires a police detail.
Right.
And if we have less than that, if less companies utilize our police for details, that fund will have less, but we obviously would spend less. And if we had more, we would obviously get more money to cover it. So it's really kind of a,
It's a wash.
it's a
yeah,
wash,
with-
okay.
The level, the rate has been set to cover personnel, the salaries, the benefits, retirement, and also there's a charge for cruiser rental as well.
Okay. Cruiser rental, okay,
Have to pay for all those cars we have in the back of the, that everybody keeps asking about.
okay. Any other questions from the council regarding these two items? Go to the Budget Committee. Questions regarding the police outside details of the sewer division? That's all set? You guys? Set? Dan? It's good. Pop your head out behind sewer, you'll have someone else, so I don't forget you there, okay? All right. Okay, we'll move on then to,
Public?
I'm sorry, yeah, we got to go to the public, but I just wanted to say, personally, I would support the staff's recommendation as one counselor for the increase. I believe it's an investment, a fund that's for that purpose. So I agree that as one counselor that we should do that and put it to, and budget it accordingly. So, all right. I will go to the public. Any public questions or input regarding the sewer division, special revenue fund, or the police outside detail, special revenue fund? Okay, see none, bring it back. Final comments? See none, okay. Dave, moving on to the next, which is expendable maintenance trust.
Right, each year, the voters raise a certain amount of money. It's been $200,000 in the last several years to help pay for the maintenance upkeep of our town buildings and facilities. Customarily, that number has been offset by use of undesignated fund balance. Historically, it's been about $100,000. And this year, the recommendation is to use, I believe, $135,000 on designated fund balance. So the actual tax impact will be about $65,000. And that pays, again, for the upkeep and repairs for all of our town buildings. What we've been trying to do is fence a good portion of this every year for improvements to the highway garage. I think all you have seen the highway garage during one of our many tours, and it's an old antiquated structure. It needs a lot of work. So instead of looking at a bond, we've been sort of, the analyst has been dividing the work into different phases and implementing phases as we go along. But as an example, this year, we're going to have to take a look at the entire fund and repurpose some of that to take care of the library roof, which we discovered a significant issue within the last month and a half. So I suspect that project will be taking a look at this coming spring and summer and taken care of.
Okay. Sean?
And Dave, preliminarily, how much are we looking at for that replacement of that roof? Because I heard there were some issues as far as how it was built.
Well, as I'll try to best explain it, and Barbara, help me if you can. According to Steve Cotton, our administrative support coordinator who deals with the maintenance of the buildings, apparently there's a moisture problem which not only caused the roof to be replaced, but also possibly some of the sheathing underneath the roof. So all I can tell you is from a size-wise, we replaced the roof on the Lions Hall, which is a town building. That cost us about $28,000 this past summer. So look from a size perspective, I suspect we'll be north of that number to take care of the library roof.
Thank you. Is that, one other thing, is that pretty much the biggest thing we have right now in the pipeline as far as major fixes that you can see?
Beyond that, in our incremental improvements, the highway garage, right, everything else, we've allocated, I think we've allocated $18,500 for general repairs at the library, about $10,000 for this building, some for the police facility, some for the fire station,
It's
some
just
for the
normal
senior
stuff,
center.
though?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, as an example, we have an order later on this evening for about $6,000 or so worth of little tasks that'll come out of this, so that's used for those types of things. Other questions from the council regarding expendable maintenance trust? No? Mike?
Yeah. I just, again, from a level-setting standpoint, Dave, our goal's relatively simple, and that is to deliver a flat tax rate, which ends up not costing the taxpayer any more than they paid the previous year on their tax bill for the town portion of their tax bill. And in order to do that, we need to find money in 3 areas that impact the tax rate, and this is one of those areas, right?
That's correct.
Capital reserve and maintenance for $525,000, which was your original presentation, is a 9-cent hit on the tax rate, as you proposed it. In previous years, I believe, when we weren't trying to do a flat tax, but we're trying to do no more than 2% increase, I believe we may have directed you to kind of reduce that area to help in that regard. And so I just want to kind of bring it up again, that our goal relates to 3 specific areas. The operating budget, which is $4.47, that's where the big stuff is. But we also have 9 cents in our tax rate in this capital reserve maintenance account. And then we have another 19 cents, which we'll get to, which is overlay and veterans. So I think it's important that when we talk about, the pain that needs to be shared across the departments, there are other policy-related areas that we could go after to hit this goal. And this is one of those areas. And we've done it before. And I think we've discussed as a group that when you reduce in the capital reserve and maintenance accounts to the point where they don't do what they're supposed to, it costs you a lot more money on the back end. So, Dave, a just long-winded way of me saying, you've kind of held those down lower than you would advise us ordinarily.
Well, what we've done, we've tried to maintain a level expense amount, but we've reduced what we draw upon from surplus to pay for that. As an example, in FY09, we raised $105,000 by taxation to support these expenses. FY10, we reduced the appropriation to $100,000 and used surplus for that entire amount. In FY11, the current year, the budget's back up to $200,000, but we used $150,000 of surplus, so the net is $50,000. And moving forward, next year, the net's going to be $65,000, and the plan is move the net raised by taxation in 13 to $100,000 back to the level. So we have used this as an area to moderate the tax impact. Again, recognizing what you just said, is that, I don't want the community to wake up in 3 or 4 years and we're woefully short of revenues to maintain the investment the taxpayers have made into the numerous facilities in the community.
Yeah, I just wanted to establish that we have gone after this area when we're trying to seek relief, and there's a balancing act that's very difficult in this area. And I know there's probably some other counselors who would prefer we don't even, maybe Budget Committee members, touch this area, but we have before. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding expendable maintenance from the, okay, Budget Committee? Todd?
Just to be clear, we are in fact funding the repair on the roof, right? For the library, it's
Oh,
going
yes.
to get done?
Yes, absolutely.
We have a big investment in the
Right.
facility here.
Yep.
I want to make sure it's,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that's obviously going to take place before this budget, so. Comments? Okay, all set. Okay. So go to the public regarding expendable maintenance trust. Any questions or comments from the public regarding this budget item? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Any final thoughts, questions? No? Okay. Dave, moving on to the next, which is capital reserve funds.
Another planning tool which the town has used for a number of years. This pays for the cost of replacing our large rolling stock, 4 categories. In the fire department apparatus is one fund. Ambulance replacement is a second fund. In the highway, we have highway trucks and highway heavy equipment, which is the loaders and the graders and the grade alls and whatever else Janos and his crew needs to maintain the roads. And again, back in FY09, the appropriation was $325. We raised that entire amount by taxation. The reliance upon property tax dropped to $125 in FY10, $175 in FY11, and I just want to make sure that's updated correctly, is that we're looking to increase that to $200,000 in FY12 with the same appropriation. And next year, hopefully, to increase the reliance upon taxes and the appropriation. $325,000 is an appreciable amount of money. But when you looked at a highway truck with the sander and the body will cost us in excess of $100,000, when a pumper is creeping up on $500,000 and a lot of trucks are $1 million, you can see it doesn't take long to deplete that. To respond to this hopefully temporary lull in the investments, so we've asked departments to stretch their equipment a little further. Obviously, there's some consequences to that, but again, it's that balance Mike spoke of, of trying to soften the impact on the taxpayers, but also not getting too far behind where we ended up, where we were about 9 years ago, in which we were actually paying bonds for fire trucks, and including one truck that was taken out of service before the debt service was completed. It's an area we want to avoid.
Yeah. Okay. Questions regarding capital reserve? John? Yes? Mike? Dave, just to refresh my memory, what was the last two budget cycles? I know we looked at, we reduced this 2 years ago, and I think last year as well.
Yeah, last year, the appropriation has remained at 325 for the last 4 years, with the exception of FY10, which we reduced it by $100,000, but the reliance upon the property tax was a full 325 back in FY9. And for FY12, we're ratcheting back up to 200. We're intermediate steps of 125 and 175. So
Okay.
we're trying to ratchet it back up to where we think it's a sustainable level to maintain our equipment in a proper condition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions from the Budget Committee regarding capital expenditures? Capital reserve funds, I mean? Yes. All set. Okay, members of the public, anyone who has any questions regarding the capital reserve funds? Okay, bring it back to the council. Go to the next item, which is the number 11, master plan, non-capital reserve. Dave?
This hopefully will complete the funding to allow staff to update the master plan, $50,000 from, again, undesignated fund balance. I believe Community Development is looking to start that process in...
After March.
So we'll be starting at, with the next fiscal year. The town raised $100,000, the initial investment, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, and we believe this amount will allow us to complete that, the funding of that project and move forward. And I think for those who have been involved with the planning process, you can see that unlike a lot of communities, Londonderry's master plan is really a living document. The implementation rate is very good, and that's a testament to the planning board, the council, and the hard work of staff and the community development office to make sure that we get a lot of community consensus as to the direction of the community, and that those recommendations of the master plans adopted by the community and the planning board are carried out in a timely fashion.
Okay. Questions from the council?
I got one. Sure. As far as this master plan, is this encompassing some of what's going on near Woodmont?
Andre will respond to that.
Andre Guerin, Community Development Director. I suspect as we move forward with the master plan efforts, particularly when we get into visioning and land use, obviously Woodmont will play a role in that, not only for Woodmont, but for the community as to where do we see ourselves going and accomplishing in the years ahead. And also, I just want to mention that typically we have followed a 7-year cycle with regard to amending our master plan. What I'm seeking to do is doing a comprehensive plan, which will enable us to look at this every 10 years as opposed to every 7 years.
Good plan. Sounds like a money saver, too. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with regard to this, if I may, I did have the opportunity to speak with Governor Lynch directly on Saturday with regards to Pettingill Road and his comments about that in his inaugural speech. And he was excited, was probably the best way to describe it, and he's, thinks it really is something that the state needs and is fully behind it. So with that, with, the Woodmont discussions that are taking place with the planning board, while I, like anyone else, would not like to spend $50,000, this may be, our one opportunity to get out in front of this.
Thank you. Tom? Mike?
No. I do have a question after this, though.
Okay. Dave, so earlier on in our budget workshops, we had looked at the $50,000, but I want to bring up the point again that the $50,000 from this, if we eliminated this, it would not change the tax rate because this was coming completely out of expendable maintenance trust fund.
Coming out of undesignated fund
I'm
balance.
sorry, the undesignated fund balance.
That's correct.
So we had said, what are we spending the $50,000 for? Can we delay that? But in reality, if we didn't do this, it wouldn't reduce the tax rate at all.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, questions from the public regarding the master plan non-capital reserve? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Okay, any final thoughts? Yes, Mike?
Yeah, Dave, maybe I'm missing something, but should there be a number 12 on this list, the overlay veterans exemptions, that's 19 cents in the tax rate? Do we not discuss that, or we already have?
Well, you can discuss it, but it's not a budget which is approved by town meeting.
Okay.
The veterans piece has been approved by various council resolutions,
Yep.
so there's a dollar figure attached to that policy decision.
Yep.
Overlay, we present a number to the council, and that number is presented to DRA when they establish the tax rate.
Okay.
And so those two numbers do impact the tax rate, but they are not voted on at town meeting.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason I brought that up is it's $608,000, $488,000 is taxpayer support of the veterans exemptions, which is a $500 credit to give the veterans in town, and then there's another $120,000 that the taxpayers are funding for the overlay, and then there's an additional $125 from undesignated fund balance for the overlay, so it's $250 for the overlay. But it's important to note that of the rate we're trying to level, 19 cents of that are policy decisions related to giving a credit to our veterans as well as the overlay account.
Okay,
Just wanted to establish that.
thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to open a discussion on that as well, if we may.
Sure.
That's not why I brought it up.
Well, I want to, if you didn't bring it up, I was gonna.
Yeah.
And I will say, I am a veteran, and back in the early part of this past decade, I was a major proponent, so you can either give me the credit or the blame, depending on which side of the argument you fall on this, but the state did allow us the ability to open up a veteran's exemption on local taxes up to, but not exceeding $500 per veteran. And so what we did on the council back then was, 1 year at a time, we graduated that till we quickly got to the $500 maximum, which is something that not all communities do, and it's an acknowledgement of the service that our veterans have given to the country, and I fully supported that, and I still do. But I think, and I'll take the heat on this, I think it should be open for discussion. We are asking a lot of folks in the community to sacrifice. A lot of the departments being forced to sacrifice. We heard from the library tonight, they are sacrificing. I think we should acknowledge that. The police department is sacrificing, the fire department is sacrificing. I think there's a number of reductions in staff. So the question I think that we should put on the table, and I would like to hear from the public on this, is that should there be truly no sacred cows, and should we ask our veterans to step up to the plate and take a reduction in this exemption, perhaps the tune of 5%, which was typical reduction we've asked of all the departments, which would reduce the veterans exemption from $500 per head to approximately $475 reduction in their taxes. There's certainly no commentary on their service, on the worthiness of the sacrifices that they make, but it adds them to the mix. It does take the concern about having sacred cows off the table, and says that everybody is in this together. And if we were to do that, that would save approximately $23,000 or $24,000, I believe, in the budget. So I just want to open that up for discussion. I think I don't think it's something we should avoid. It's something we should listen to the public talk to us on this issue.
Comments on what Tom was just saying?
That's not why I brought it up. I just wanted, we did not discuss this.
We
Okay,
didn't.
all right.
While I appreciate what Tom's saying, I can say that I am not a veteran, but having many in my family, including one active duty, my brother, I think that when it comes to this particular issue, I think a lot of the veterans, just like anybody else, are on fixed incomes. And quite honestly, I don't believe this would be an area that as one counselor, prefer to. I don't think it should be talked about. I think it should be left alone as it is. And it's not, to me, a sacred cow. I just think it's out of respect for the service that the veterans provided, and I don't even think I want to entertain it, but that's just me.
Joe?
So I had the benefit of, this past weekend, and I sat next to Sergeant Major Zimmerman's wife. She had an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter, and her husband was going off on his 5th tour. And another gentleman got up, and he gave a very moving speech about being wounded in Vietnam, and a number of these veterans who would receive this benefit today, I believe, would have served in Vietnam. And he talked about being wounded, and talked about going to Tokyo and having surgery, and then on to Hawaii, and then the entire time in uniform, being discharged in Oakland, going to San Francisco in uniform, flying from San Francisco to Boston, getting off the plane with his gear in uniform, got on a Greyhound bus, went home to Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and walked 1/2 mile to his parents' house. And during that entire journey, the only person to say hello to him was his mother. They've given enough for me.
Mike?
Just a procedural question, Dave, because as I recall, we incrementally increased it, and was that because there's a certain increase per statute? In other words, Tom's suggesting a percent, 5%, which is 24,400, and it's a policy decision. It's not asking the veterans, do they want to give it up? The 5 of us would make a decision to reduce that amount.
Yeah,
Can we reduce it by that kind of an amount?
Yeah, the statute says that you can get the standard of $50, or you can get the adjusted, a local option, between $51 and $500. So if the council ever did choose to adjust it by a percentage, we'd reduce that to a dollar value.
Okay.
To be in compliance with the law.
Okay.
But there's no, the council did it over a period of years at $100 a year, I think for 3 or 4 years in a row.
Right.
But there's no magic to that, just a policy the council feel comfortable with.
Yep.
All right. Tom, are you looking for?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the Budget Committee and from the public as to how they feel. I'm not advocating for it, I think it's something that we should put on the table and
Okay.
have it.
So-
And if we decide to leave it, then it should be a decision to leave it, not just
Okay.
avoid the discussion.
So let's go ahead and go to the Budget Committee and see if they have any feedback on this, and then go to the public, but we'll keep it to the same rules.
Well, I'm not a veteran, but I'm absolutely dead set against touching that. I think that's the one thing that we owe them for the service to their country. So it's the only thing we can do in the town that really shows that we have, some pride and appreciation for what they do.
Tom?
I work with people in uniform in my job for the Department of Defense. I hear the stories of what's going on overseas in Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, and a number of other places. I'd say that the professionalism, the contribution, and in fact what they do day in, day out that you never hear about, that sacrifice is more than enough than I think any of us could ever expect. I would strongly recommend that we maintain the credit that is already due to them. It's just the right thing to do, a small token of a community's appreciation for what the men in uniform, men and women in uniform do day in, day out, and they come back. In a community like this that does something like that, I think we should maintain it as is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the Budget Committee? Okay.
I think it's a small way that we say thank you on an annual basis. It's what we can do. We're in a time of war, and it ought to be left intact. I think Tom shows a lot of class bringing the issue to the table as a veteran, but I think we ought to show the same class as a town and say thank you for the offer, but let's keep it as is.
Thank you. I too, I mean, Tom, I just want to say I appreciate you bringing this up. You're right. It shows that there are no sacred cows, and I appreciate your honesty and so forth. I'm really glad you did bring it up. I mean that sincerely. Personally, I wouldn't, when I look at if we reduced it by 5%, it might save us $25,000. It would be less than a penny on the tax rate. So I'd gladly pay that personally. So anyway, but I just want to say, your thought is bringing it up is the proper thing to do. So any members of the public, if you have any quick comments on this, I don't want to dwell a lot of time. I think we have pretty much council consensus that we don't want to go forward with this, so I don't think we will, but if anyone had any final comments, maybe. Okay, bring it back to the council. Okay, Dave, so we've gone through the 11 items. Where do we go from here? I know you had some items that you had followed up on from last meet.
Sure, I can go through those. I was asked to review whether a call firefighter call force could remain as a volunteer force, and they can. There's a number of those throughout the state. Volunteers are covered under New Hampshire workers' comp law and also receive liability protection under the town's general liability coverage. So that obviously is a possibility. Regarding the cable revenue fund transfer, you have a couple pieces of information there. You have a comparison of the staffing levels of communities of similar size to Londonderry being Derry, Merrimack, and Bedford. You also have a longer survey of how other communities use their franchise fees. And you also have some information from Dottie Grover, who submitted it upon request to the town regarding staffing levels and what the responsibilities are. There's a question regarding administrative support in the Community Development Department. Currently, there are 3 staff support positions. The proposed budget would reduce that to 2, and acceptance of that recommendation would require that the 2 remaining staff positions concentrate on the following functions: is to provide staff support to the Planning Board, Zoning Board, and Conscom, which in total customarily meet about 5 to 6 times per month. The support would include issuing legal notices for public hearings and completing meeting minutes within the prescribed statutory deadlines, the issuance of building and other permits, customer service requests, and support services to technical staff and department manager. I suspect that under certain occasions, the technical staff would be needed to assume more customer support requests and support services activities in the absence of a third support position. I've also spoken briefly to Andre about a reconfiguration of the offices upstairs to somehow make sure that that all the public goes into, right now they go into 2 separate areas, of building division and community development division, and try to funnel all the traffic into one division. which would allow us for better office coverage and produce some efficiencies. And, in closing, I suspect we may have to review this in subsequent fiscal years if the economy recovers significantly, which significantly impacts the department's development activity. And then on dispatch and in my previous comments, again, it's a question of timing, and also it's a question of the transition costs, which are well beyond the $50,000 placeholder in the original budget. So therefore, that's the recommendations we're making with respect to the Highway Division to maintain the council's level funded tax rate, but not to lose sight of the fact that I still believe there are opportunities for the community with combined dispatch, either internally or regionally, and that the council include that. I would encourage the council to include that as a goal in FY12, and to work on that throughout the year, and to really exhaust those opportunities. Having said that, you've done a complete review of your budget on all the items at this point. And it's obvious the council's decision will take additional comment, but just to level set where we are, is that the operating budget as posted for this public hearing was $25,697,875. We recommended that you correct the recreation budget, which is an add of $8,075. We've restored the dispatch savings of $93,779, and we've reduced the Highway Division budget of $84,815, which results in a bottom line of $25,714,911. That's $25,714,911. That number is $17,036 higher than the original budget. However, we were notified of receiving some additional revenues in that same amount. So when you look at the increased revenues offset against the increased budget, it washes out where the council at this point has still achieved its goal of a level funded tax rate.
Okay.
There are adds and there are tos and froms for both fire, police, highway, and rec division, and we can go through those later on when the council is ready to make some motions on the budget.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Tom?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no additional public comment, I would ask if you would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, so, councilors, we do have, I see 4 hands up. Who from the public has something that they would like to say? I see 5 hands up, 6 hands.
Sounds like we ought to hear him.
Okay. Yes, Mike?
With the reminder, Mr. Chairman, 3 minutes.
Yep.
Londonderry residents first.
I was gonna
Okay.
say that.
Thanks.
I'm not going to be doing
So,
musical chairs either.
so I will go through what I said in the beginning of the meeting in case anybody, came in late. That we'll take public comment from Londonderry residents first. All right? Everybody gets to speak one time before, so, if you're going to keep coming up in line, you're going to let everybody else who wants to speak first go first. You get 3 minutes. We'll hold you to that. If you have some statement you want to read or something that's going to take more than 3 minutes, you're going to have to go back in line. And then we'll allow non-residents, if there's any non-residents. And then remember what I said in the beginning of the meeting about we will end this discussion about this budget at 10:30. So, all right. So, members of the public, I saw Pauline raise her hand first, so I'll take her first. And then I ask you to, just come up in an orderly manner. And once again, please state your name and address for the record.
Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. I've been reviewing the town budget in all departments. One of the things I noticed is there's one department that didn't get decreased. It's the police department. They're increased $351,990. Now, if you look in the budget book, pages 70, 71, and 72, it shows different increases. I know there are increases for health insurance, FICA, dental insurance, and all of those. But also, the custodial services was increased by $29,000 to $40,000. Overtime, part-time salaries had nothing, and then it was increased $20,000. Overtime salary increase, $27,000. Machinery and equipment, $50,000 when there was nothing in the police department's budget. That's a total of $126,000.
Dave,
I
comments?
would like an explanation on those figures.
The police department appears to have an increase, however, part of that increase, what you're seeing, is the transfer of about $285,000 from the fire department for the dispatch, which will now be reversed back if the council accepts our latest recommendation. There's also, I can tell you that the police department went through a process, the 5% exercise, where they did reduce their budget by 5%. Later on, the council voted as a policy decision to restore an SRO and a crossing guard, which increased the budget from the present status during the budget process of about $137,000. In summary, I can tell you that there have been reductions, sizable reductions in the police department budget. When you talk about $40,000 for custodial, you may also note that that's in lieu of eliminating the full-time custodian in that department.
Okay, well, I know the town manager increased the police department budget by almost $300,000 from what they submitted. And then there's additional because of the SRO, et cetera.
Right.
Okay, but $50,000 in machinery and equipment. The chief had nothing on that. It was zero.
I have to wait for Dave to answer.
Yeah, Sue tells me the $50,000 was a transitional cost for the combined dispatch, the one-time expense.
But that's not what the budget says. Okay. My comments on the budget in general, I told you about the cable already. And next year, Dottie Grover's retiring. So that will leave only one employee in the cable department if you take that position out. It looks like the school department is probably going to end up taking over the cable department, which is what they've been wanting to do, because you're paving the way in this direction. In addition, I don't think you should be consolidating the police and fire dispatch at this time, because we can't afford it. We've been having no problem with the way it's been run, and I think we should at least leave it that way for another year or two until we get out of this economic slump. Thank you.
Okay.
Just had a couple of
Okay, name and
comments.
address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dottie Grover, Mammoth Road. Also Director of Cable Services. And I just had a couple of things that I wanted to clarify. There is information in here, as you've all seen, several pages on the cable department. And I have reviewed the information, and it's hard to know exactly what questions were asked on the surveys, or so it's hard to see how to interpret it. But I wanted to just clarify that although there are 4 towns that may be fairly similar in size population-wise, they're very dissimilar in size as far as their cable departments are concerned. One reason being that they don't have anywhere near the number of volunteers that we have. However, Derry actually has 3¼ people, not 2. Merrimack has 3½. I don't know where they get these halves of people. And Bedford does have 2, so that one is definitely within that 2-person range. The other question that was asked about the franchise fees, I've reviewed this list very carefully, and there were many towns on here that were not familiar to me, even with the work that I do at a state level. And I discovered by checking each one out individually that the reason for that is the ones that are saying that they have a % of the franchise fee that they receive, and yet there's nothing going to the cable operations, don't have cable operations. Some of them might have a bulletin board, which is certainly not a cable operation, but they don't have a full-blown access center with volunteers and several channels. So that sort of, I think, makes that information a little bit different. And again, I'm just saying, not knowing how the question was asked, I'm not sure how the answers are meant to be. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was for the list on staffing levels since 1984, when the cable department started in Londonderry. And by the way, we were among the first in the state because Heron Cablevision really wanted to come to Londonderry. They wanted to get their foot in the door here, and they gave us a great deal, much better than I think anybody has gotten since. But since 1984, there has always been, whether it was provided by the cable department or whether it was provided by the cable company, there have always been at least one full-time person doing training. That might have been if you add like 3 part-timers together, but there's never been less than one person in all of these years since 1984. And I just wanted to clarify that. And if anybody has any questions on any of the other information that I put in there at any time, feel free to ask. Okay?
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Mr. Walensky?
Richard Polinsky, 89 Hall Road. Looking at the information that I have, I don't know if you were given copies of the resolutions. Did you read the resolutions?
Only the information Dave summarized to us.
All right, only what he summarized. You didn't read the actual resolution?
No,
Okay.
I didn't personally.
I still have the same problem with you people taking the money out of there. I think it would have behooved you to have read the resolution. Whereas individuals attending the 1999 town meeting voiced their desire to increase the amount of franchise fees being placed in the cable fund for support and operation of the cable department, as does a citizen's petition presented to the council at their meeting of February 7th, 2000, and whereas the town council is vested in the authority to direct utilization of said funds in accordance with the request of the town meeting and its citizens, agrees to distribution of franchise fees shall be used in such manner. Now there be resolved by the town council of the town of Londonderry that all franchise fees as paid to the town by Adelphia, which is now Comcast, shall thereafter be deposited in a cable fund for the sole purpose of defraying operational costs of the departments. If you people are not going to go by resolutions that were done by other councils, don't ever do a resolution, because if you're not going to honor them, why should them? Or should anybody else? What I find even more disturbing was on the information that Dave summarized, is at the end of the budget session, we're going to come up and adopt a resolution to formally amend this practice. So we're going to be taking this money for years that you should have never taken, not just this council, but other councils over the last few years. And because you're doing something you shouldn't be doing and not respecting the wishes of the people, you're just going to amend it and come up with a whole new resolution after the fact to correct what you've done. Where do you expect to be respected? If you had done it before, I wouldn't have agreed if you had, but at least it would be out there in the open. You did it ahead of time. Hey, we need money. Times are tough. We have to do this. But to take the money, and the money's been taken, I think it was, if you did concluded what you want to do now, it was $450,000. And in the budget going forth, apparently this is a done deal, because it
Mr.
shows that
Belinsky?
$40,000 of it are going to be allocated every year from now on. It's right in Dave's information.
Mr. Belinsky, first of all, I don't have a time machine to go back and correct what might have been done wrong in the past. The town let me speak. I got the
Go
floor
ahead.
now.
Go ahead.
Our town manager has brought this now to our attention, which, you know, I could credit yourself and others who brought it up in the last discussion. And we need, if before the budget is effective in July 1st of 2011, we need to amend that resolution to go forward. And I think that's the right thing to do, and that's what's been proposed. Am I mistaken in that, Dave? Is that what you're?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, I can't go back in time and correct the budgets from prior years, but we're trying to fix this going forward.
Right, but you intend to take the money this year.
2011, budget starting July 1st, 2011, if
But
this
but it's
budget
already proposed. You're proposing money, you don't even know that there is other ways to lock this money up so that you can't do that. And if that needs to be done, I'll do it. The fact of the matter is, have some respect for the taxpayers. First of all, you're making me pay a disproportionate amount of taxes because I'm being taxed for this, and you're taking money out of the cable fund that I paid for as a cable subscriber, redispersing it to cover taxes, entities that would be paid through the tax rate, while some people who don't have cable and businesses aren't paying for it at all. That's wrong. Wrong. I don't know where you learn math, but that's wrong.
Let it go. Let it go.
Okay. Name and address again, please.
Cindy Eaton, 16 Clark Road. As you just heard, the resolutions were made after town meetings. So it's the people of Londonderry that asked, and a citizen's petition even, that the feeling of the meeting was that we needed these resolutions. And since that time, none of the resolutions have gone to, there hasn't been another resolution to change this, what I call it is a policy. This is like a policy. It seems to me that if it was the will of the people at town meetings to have these resolutions, and the town council went forth with their, what they were asking for, then it should be a town meeting that decides if they no longer want the franchise fees to go solely for the purpose of the operational budget of the cable department. I don't see how a town council can make an amendment or annul a resolution that came from the people that were at town meeting. Am I wrong about that?
Well, it's the council's resolution, so the council can amend it to policy at any time. Okay, just to make sure everybody's clear, regardless of philosophy on it, there's nothing that legally precludes or encumbers the funds to a cable fund.
Then why do you need to make an amendment to this?
Because there was a resolution.
Because there was a
back in-
resolution, to set the resolution straight for historical context. I mean, this issue has been discussed for the last 2 years during the budget process as a proposal to use $40,000 in cable franchise fees to help support the operating budget. The difference is this year is the recommendation to increase that from 40 to 105.
I still don't understand. There's never been, to my knowledge, another resolution that needed to be amended without a town meeting discussing it.
As Dave said, this is a resolution that a prior town council passed. I think, I think I speak for everyone up here, that had we known this, we probably, in 2 years ago or whatever, we probably would have brought it up then and looked to pass a new resolution. So Dave is proposing that we pass a new resolution, assuming this budget goes forward, so that could take effect. It's the council's prerogative to do that, to pass a resolution, to allow a percentage of the cable
5%.
franchise fees to go to funding other than the cable department.
I think you're going to have a lot of townspeople upset because it came from town meetings. Also, the reading of that says for the sole purpose of operational costs. And I believe the training coordinator salary would be considered operational cost. So why is that not be taking from the special fund.
Ma'am, you've gone far beyond your 3 minutes. All right,
All right, I'll come back.
thank you. Mark? Sir, please don't interrupt me again, okay? If you have something to say, get in line and say it. But please don't interrupt me again.
I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to Lady Jean.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Oswald.
councilors.
Name and address, please, just for the record.
Mark Oswald, 11 Verde Lane. Follow-up question from one of the previous joint sessions with Council and Budget Committee. I believe that the town manager requested the unions to consider a voluntary wage freeze for the year, and that amount was about $500,000, is that correct?
Yes.
And has there been a second request back to the bargaining units for that?
There has not been.
Was that not a consensus of the Budget Committee and the Council 2 or 3 weeks ago?
To do what?
To do what?
I was on medication, maybe it was just a dream.
To go back to them, you mean?
Hey, in other words, hey, would you reconsider?
My back's better, okay? I'm off the meds. Yeah, I guess that would be, I'm not representing the Budget Committee, I'm representing myself as a taxpayer.
I don't
to make
recall us
that
going back a
request.
second time.
Yeah, to go back, I think,
I don't think we ever discussed it as far as going back to them,
Okay.
in my recollection.
it was the meds.
Yeah,
All right, so, but in that context, I think we've all tried to work collectively this year on a tough challenge, and that's to keep a flat tax rate. I would recognize, that said, I would recognize that the town manager, the assistant town manager, the superintendent of schools, the principals in the school district have all voluntarily offered a wage or salary freeze for the coming year. So in that vein, I'd like to ask or pose the following suggestions. What would the cost savings be if the department heads in town were to accept no COLA or no merit increase for the coming year? And I realize you may not have that number.
Just for clarification, since we don't have a current agreement with our department managers, there is no COLA budgeted
Okay,
regardless.
all right.
And I'll have to get back to the number as far as a merit increase.
And we could have that by February 3rd?
Oh, sure.
For the next hearing. There's currently no agreement. Are they still receiving overtime or compensation for attending meetings?
That's admin, they are eligible for an admin time payment, that's correct.
Okay. And what would the cost savings be if they voluntarily agreed not to take that for the forthcoming year?
Our estimate at this point, it's about $25,000.
Okay. Thank you. Lastly, I don't know if the council's considered this. A lot of communities in the area, certainly Massachusetts, have considered furlough of employees. The state's doing that now, too. Is that a topic worth discussing or considering, and what would the cost savings be? And I don't think that has to be negotiated, because I think it's like a layoff. If you lay people off, you lay people off. If you're going to furlough people, 1 week out of the year or 3 days out of the year or whatever, what would that potential savings be? Something I'd like to have considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you get all that, Dave?
Under 3 minutes?
Yep. Wow, close.
Close.
Dave, just from the council side of things, furlough, and we haven't really discussed anything like that, but is that allowed?
That would be an item subject to collective bargaining negotiations.
Okay, but
Would be
for negotiations for future contracts, or?
existing.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay.
It would be a change in the current conditions of employment.
Yeah. Name and address, please.
Dan Bouchard, 8 O'Connell Drive. I just want to clarify one thing. When I was here last time, and I talked about the SROs, and my recollection was that the SRO program had been started under one article. After doing some research, that was incorrect. So I wanted to clarify that. It was brought up to town meeting by the parent teacher organizations. I also want to make one comment about Councilor Farrell's comment last week, where
No, I don't remember, so I'm listening.
the comment was, as under the town charter, we can't tell the town manager where to cut. But yet, you ask the public tell me where you want us to cut. I mean, I feel like, you know what, there are areas,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
there are areas you can cut, but it's pointless because it is a bottom line budget. It's the town manager's decision where he wants to cut. I could sit here and I could tell you where to cut, all right, and how to save, you know, a few $100,000, but it's not really going to matter.
So my hope in making that comment is someone thinks of something that no one else up here thought of, nobody that neither Dave nor Sue thought of, everybody goes, wow, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And then the town manager goes, oh, they all think it's a good idea, I should probably do that. That would be my, I would hope it would work that way.
But, I mean, I know it's a tough budget year, and I had mentioned about bringing a warrant article, citizens petition for the SRO. When I left here the following day, and through the past couple weeks, I've had at least 100 people want to sign that petition. I will tell you that I will not bring a citizens petition forward. I feel that after discussing it with people, it's a town manager's decision. If he wants to cut the SROs because the department head says they don't need them, they don't need them. And yet, if you look at the new bullying law that just came into effect, they'll just be sending more officers at that school. So it's your decision where you want to cut. I've mentioned it before. You have management positions in this town that you can look at. Councilor Farrell mentioned it before. When we talked about HR, maybe combining that with the school, maybe making that a part-time position, you could save money there. And I could keep going, but I'm not gonna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Bouchard, just a quick question, if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
Maybe I do.
Well, you don't have to answer it. Hopefully, it's not a rude question.
This is rare.
Are you pleased that we added an SRO back in?
I am very pleased you added one SRO back in.
Right.
You could do more. You need
Yeah.
two.
I understand. I'm
Bottom
just
line,
wondering
you
if
need
you were pleased with that move by the council.
Well, yeah, I was. I mean,
Okay.
I was happy that at least we're going to have one in the high school. It's not really providing the SRO program like it should be, but you've
Yeah.
got one.
One clarification, though, and I think if we go back into the meeting minutes, we're not in a professional position to say, put it in the high school. We referenced the high school, thinking in our minds that makes sense. It's up to the chief to decide where it goes.
Correct.
Okay. And if he decides that it needs to be dedicated to the high school, that's good for me. If he decides it needs to go across schools, that's fine with me. I was pleased that we came to the consensus to add one back in to the school district.
If you want to really please me, Mike, what you could do is increase the budget to put one more SRO in that would cover the elementary schools and the middle school. Because what you have to do is you have to build that relationship with the youth, so when they get to the high school, you've built that relationship and it's beneficial to you. Not all of a sudden that they come into the high school, they see an officer, and, you know, that relationship just isn't there. So I know
He
from...
was very careful to say increase the budget, and so I didn't have to ask him where I was going to get the money from.
I can tell you where to cut it to take it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Sir, name and address for the record, please.
Bob Maxwell, 3 Utterson. I've been a town resident for about 27 years, and I work in the commercial sector, and I think I listened to as much of the last meeting as I could on cable. I found this meeting very interesting. I think I have a bit of a contrarian position. I want to thank the council from the bottom of my heart for attempts to hold the budget flat. I wish he'd cut it. Londonderry has wonderful employees. My experience with the town has been nothing but positive. I think they're smart, they're hardworking, and the amount of angst I hear over trying to hold a budget flat or cut some departments 5% makes me think they don't fully comprehend what's been going on in the commercial sector. I work in high-tech manufacturing. It's growing again, thank God. These aren't things I've heard. These are things that I've lived over the last 2 years. That my department of 85 people is now 24. We're not adding back. 2 out of every 3 chairs I walk past every day is empty. The people who were laid off, that I know their histories, they were out of work for 6 to 12 months with no income. When they got back to work, the jobs they're working at now are 30 to 40% reduction in pay from what they made when they worked for us. Those of us who stayed in 12 months had 10 unpaid weeks, 20%. So when I hear people worried about taking a week off, thank you, that's a start. It hurts, but this is life. Think about these people. They were out for 6 to 12 months, no income. Now they're working for 30%, 40% less. That's life-changing. They're not crawling out of that hole. They're hanging on by their fingernails. They're the ones being foreclosed. We've had no pay increase in 3 years, and we've been told we won't get a pay increase this year. We don't get pensions. That was part of the deal going in. We have to save for our retirement unless we're satisfied with Social Security, which we're certainly not. Our savings have been crushed. Healthcare costs go up every year. We're personally responsible for 25 to 40% of our healthcare costs. A guy I sat next to for 3 years, engineering manager, wonderful guy, he's about 40 years old. He didn't get laid off. He got a little bit overextended. His investments went to hell. He lost his house. He, his wife, and 2 children, one of them special needs, are living with his parents out of state while he tries to put his life back together again. This is bad, and if the best we can do is hold it flat, thank you. Somebody asked me, why don't we just let the taxes go up? At the town, we're talking $10 a month, if we sort of funded all these things that people would like to fund. The example I have for that is our church participates in the town Christmas basket program to help families that are really in hardship. This year, our church and one other helped 140 families. That's more than we've ever helped. There are a lot of other charitable organizations in town, so I assume they were helping far more. I don't know how many families were in trouble, but it had to be hundreds. The things they ask for are not iPods, not video games. They ask for a $12 sweatshirt. They ask for a $15 pair of winter boots for their kids. So to those people, what is $10 a month? Probably 3 hot meals. It's a Christmas present for their children. Prescription drugs. It means a hell of a lot. I hope we don't lose many dedicated employees. The town, like I say, I have greatest respect for the town employees. I hope we don't cancel many services. But we can't tax anymore. And I'll tell you, I've survived. I lost 20% of my pay in a year. I've watched all these people go out, and asking people to forego raises for a year or take some unpaid furloughs is a whole lot less painful than walking past those empty chairs. If the town employees and unions choose to look at the empty chairs, so be it. But I would recommend not.
Sir, I just want to tell you, just watch your time.
I'm done. Just my final point, taxpayers are pulling a heavy load. We're trying to crawl out of this hole that we're in. The town isn't proposing to help. The town is proposing to be neutral. Please don't pull us back down in the pit. We can't pay anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell.
Other members of the public?
Martin Srugas, 17 Wimbledon Drive. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Budget Committee for its recommendations, and also the Town Council for the original proposal. I thought was fairly decent, and the modification I agree with. And I hope you stick with what you decided to do. I think we need a flat tax rate right now. One of the funny things about this town is that in this past election, we voted overwhelmingly for the Republicans with one mandate: to go to the state government and to the national government to reduce the size and the scope of government. Well, it starts here. If we can't do a simple 5% reduction here, how do you expect our national and state leaders to reduce the state government and national government? They're watching. They're watching to see how strong we are about reducing the size and the scope of the government. If we can't do it here, you know, I see no hope with the $14 trillion debt that we have accruing. We're close to anywhere from $600 to $1 billion in the state government. We haven't even talked, anybody has even mentioned about the fact that the state government may reduce budgets across the board anywhere from 12, 15%. They may up the retirement fund that they reduced the last couple of years. They may be asking for less in school budget money and all that kind of stuff. That's all coming down the road. So I think we need to prepare for that coming up in the next year or two, and it starts here. It's a simple 5% cut. This is not the end of the world, and I think you should stick to what you have planned out. I think that for the whole town, I think it's good. As I said before, there's still quite a few properties in foreclosure, a lot of empty houses, and a lot of empty businesses in town. And so I think you need to consider all the taxpayers and the financial stress that we're all under. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just so the public knows that what Martin mentioned is, the article about Merrimack and the things that are happening in the state are being proactively sent to us so that we're aware of the exact conversations that he's talking about. So thank you.
Other members of Londonderry residents? Okay. Any non-residents? Okay. Since no one else wants to go, I'll allow you to go again.
Didn't see
Yep.
anyone, so
No one stood
if
up.
there is someone.
No.
Okay. Cindy Eaton, 16 Clark Road. The question that I was going to ask is, why is the $65,000 not being taken out of the cable fund so that there would not be a person, there would not be an empty seat like the gentleman said?
That was very good.
I don't want to see any of the people fired either.
Ma'am, I don't want to see anybody laid off. I mean, I was very proactive prior to the budget. I don't want to see anybody laid off.
Well,
And I understand. I completely understand.
okay, so
But, same question. You want us to take it out of the cable budget. Mr. Belinsky tells me I'm not allowed, I shouldn't touch it, I should be ashamed of myself. So here's the balancing act. Where do we go? I mean, hey, I'm trying.
well, that's why I'm offering a suggestion.
Dave, can we take $65,000 more out of the cable account?
Should you desire, sure.
So there you have it. You've saved a person, and it's not costing the taxpayer a single cent. Doesn't that sound like a good solution? I hope so.
It's a policy decision.
That's right.
It's a straightforward policy decision.
That I'm not prepared to make tonight.
Right. The town manager's given us his recommendation. We have the ability to make a different policy if we so choose between now and the 3rd.
I'll bring it back to the council. Tom?
Let me extend that, if I may extend that discussion, that point just a bit. Since it is a policy decision, I don't believe, and Dave, stop me before I kill myself here, I don't believe we need to make that decision between now and the 3rd. I think if we decide later in February, for example, to revisit that particular decision, we could, since it really doesn't affect the budget that we'd be putting forth to town meeting, that we need to, we need a number so that we can post it. And I think that that particular decision, whether or not we decided to reduce the cable fund by an additional amount equivalent to the salary of the training coordinator, has any impact on I don't think it has any impact on the number that we would post for town meeting. So we could make that decision, adjust that policy decision later, I think. Is that correct?
There's two components. If you're going to maintain the current staffing level, that question needs to be decided by February 3rd. On the revenue side, where they're going to transfer funds into the town from the cable franchise fees, that policy decision can take place at any time. follow?
I don't, the second part, yes, but the first part, if the staffing, I mean, I would think that we could even increase, just hypothetical, don't throw anything at me, but if we could even increase staffing in the cable department as long as the money came from the cable fund and not from the town budget. I don't think it has to be tied to the budget that goes before the voters.
Well, town meeting approved a special revenue fund for cable, so that number ought to be as accurate as possible. So that number should reflect particularly number of full-time employees, because personnel is the largest expense. And
So that translates into a warrant article?
no, it's simply a number in the special revenue fund cable budget you have to decide upon, not an
Aren't the
expense number.
special revenue funds part of isn't there a warrant article wrapped
Yeah,
around
and
that?
they're all three grouped together, that's correct.
Okay, so that's what ties us to February 3rd, that,
Exactly.
posting that warrant article with the accurate.
The
numbers.
expense
Okay.
side, that's correct.
All right.
So that number has to be accurate when we
Right,
post.
okay, I understand
for
that.
town meeting. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, have a motion to close public hearing in a second. The only thing is, what about,
We don't need a public hearing.
okay, so we'll close the public hearing on the budget discussion. Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and we are closing public hearing. Okay. Keep in mind that the permits and fees discussion and the bond hearing, we would need to open a new public hearing for that at that point.
Mr. Chairman, a question. At this point, Dave, we're looking to give you a budget, an operating budget number tonight, right?
That's correct, so I can post it for February 3rd.
Mr. Chairman, will you entertain a discussion on the operating budget before we go into the public hearing for
Yes.
the other items?
I'd like to bring the budget to closure before we go on to the other items.
I had some thoughts.
Making a motion, or you?
No, not a motion,
Okay,
not yet.
okay.
I did want to say that, first of all, philosophically, I think that one of the things that the town does, and I think I'm very proud of this fact, is that we deliver a recommendation to the voters every year for a balanced budget. Wouldn't it be glorious if all levels of government would do that? I think also I wanted to comment about the veterans exemption. I'm very pleased that we decided to keep it where it is. I think, I'm especially glad that we didn't just keep it where it was because we failed to discuss it. We kept it where it was by reaffirming it. And I think that's something to be proud of in our community. The amount of expenditure that we spend, $488,000, translates into 976 veterans taking that exemption in our community. And I would, as I usually do, I would request that those veterans who are of sufficient means, that they walk away from that exemption if they can afford it, as a continuing service to your community and your fellow citizens, if you can afford it. And reserve it, allow us to keep it in the budget at a modest level so that we can keep it there for those who truly do deserve it, in terms of what they're, not that they don't deserve it for service, but deserve it in terms of their financial means, because we don't means test that. I think we've taken a lot of public comment between the last public hearing and this public hearing, and that's a great thing. I mean, I think this year, the amount of public comment we've received far exceeds what has been in the last several years. Last several years, I was on the Budget Committee listening to it, and prior to that on the council. I don't think in those 9 years I have heard the volume of public comment we've had this year. And quite often, the periods of public comment are almost silent. Maybe 2 or 3 people would speak. And you probably remember reading in the paper the council complaining about that nobody comes and talks to us, so it's hard for the council to get a feel for how the public is feeling about this, and that was not true this year. So I'm glad of that. A couple of things. One, I'm going against my own better judgment in terms of community development. If we had more freedom in the budget, I would be asking the council to think about hiring some professional business development folks to help us with the huge, probably the largest in the state, potential business development, both combined at the airport and in the old Woodmont Orchard area. That is the jewel of the state, and I wish we had the money, and I am biting my lip, and I'm holding the line, but I really think that we need the help of a professional business development firm to help our community development department develop that area faster, and thereby providing more tax revenues associated with that development earlier on the calendar rather than later. This isn't the year, so I'm not going to propose that. In the past several years, those who know me know that I have argued against the use of cable department fees in the general fund. It is not in my nature to want to go down that path, and I'm swallowing really hard this year going in that direction. I think only because of the extraordinary economic condition that we're in am I acquiescing to that policy, and so I'm going to remain unanimous with my fellow councilors with that, although again, it's not the direction that I think we should go in long term. I do have a thought about the cable department, and I'll throw it out. I'm not going to make a motion. I'll just throw it out for discussion. If the thought matures, we can turn it into a motion. But the thought was, I was hoping to decouple it from this evening, but it sounds like we really can't. The thought was to keep the training position, take an additional amount out of the cable fund to pay for that training position for 1 year, so it doesn't affect the tax rate and keeps it where it is, and then decrease the staff from 3 to 2, commensurate with Dottie's retirement the following year. I know that we can't encumber the next council, but I, as one counselor who will be here in the next term, would commit to doing that publicly. In the thought there being that we retain the talent and don't have the staff depleted from 3 down to 1, and then try to rehire back a position to replace Dottie when we have a very competent individual on staff. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have discussed this with you all ahead of time. I don't like to surprise you with this, but given the rules of 91A, I'm not permitted to discuss that ahead of time. We have to do it in public, so I don't like surprising folks, but unfortunately, the state law requires us to proceed this way. So that's a thought. Keep the training position in the cable department. Don't raise taxes to pay for it. Pay for it by taking an additional amount equivalent to the salary out of the cable fund, then reduce the entire budget by the director's, close to the director's salary when she retires next year. And that takes the head count down from 3 to 2 instead of this year, next year. Delays it 1 year, but retains the talent that's already been trained. And we've heard considerable testimony from people in town of the value of this particular employee and how she has developed a skill set that appears to be quite valuable to the community and the school system. So again, that's an idea, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to burden you with a motion at this point. I'll just throw it out for discussion. Again, if if the thought matures around that, we'll make a motion, but
Okay.
at this point, I'm not ready to. I have also in mind a number for a motion for operating budget too, but I'll hold off on that.
Well, I mean, procedurally, we should make a motion with the budget number.
All right.
And then
So-
we'll have
so we need
discussion,
to, yeah.
and then we could discuss it. So,
Okay, good
appreciate
point.
it.
I'll make a motion
I probably should have started that in the.
for a town operating budget of $25,727,911, which is $13,000 over what Dave mentioned in acknowledgement of the recommendation from the Budget Committee, which I think did yeoman's work this year and scrubbing the budget, and that restore, based on their recommendation, restores $13,000 to the budget.
Adding.
That's not what the Budget Committee was recommending.
I realize, they're not recommending they didn't recommend the total budget number, they recommended the 13,000.
They recommended a commensurate reduction elsewhere in the budget. You're asking to
Increase it by
raise the
13,000.
amount.
I'm asking to increase 13,000.
I know.
I acknowledge that.
Okay,
Well,
so we have a motion.
I'm not going to second that motion.
Not either.
Do we have a second? Okay, there's no second, so,
I ask that we continue, I understand what Tom's trying to do,
Yeah, I do too.
but, if we're gonna get it all on the table, let's get it all on the table at once, and then let's make one motion. If we're gonna have a discussion, let's put it all out there. I mean, since Dottie volunteered the cable account, it certainly, sends some ideas. So if you'll entertain ideas, then I'll put them out there. If you don't want to do that, I won't proceed down that path.
well, I'd like to do it as part of discussion of a motion in a second.
Then I'll second if it's gonna continue the discussion.
The 13,000 or Dottie's
If
recommendation?
I'm seconding, what I want to do is I would like to, if Tom wants to amend his motion so that we can discuss, taking money from the cable department and talk about what positions we would like to see put back in as far as staffing level, I'll second a motion along those lines.
What was your motion?
With the
My motion would-
understanding that revenue's got to come from somewhere, and the tax rate doesn't go up at all.
My motion was for a number. During discussion, I think you can discuss whatever you want.
Sure.
If you'll indulge me. Dave, you need a number, right? But we can also give you direction on how we want that number to hit. You don't need a motion that says, do what Dottie said. You just need a number, and we can give you direction if we agree with that. And
Okay.
I've,
Just as a reminder, the first issue you're discussing is the operating budget,
yep,
which does not include cable, outside details, or sewer. That should be a separate motion for special revenue funds.
okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think if I can read between the lines of what Councilor Farrell just said, John, would it be your thought to find that $13,000 in additional transfer of cable fees?
Yes.
If that's something that I will amend my motion to bring the budget back down to 25,714,911, which is less than 13,000, with the caveat that the additional 13,000 is transferred from the cable fund to offset the increase that the Budget Committee has recommended. 25,714,911.
And that's the number that Dave,
Just for clarification, if your intent is to transfer funds from the franchise fee to pay for that, your original number was correct, because even though you transfer, we need authority to spend it. So you have to increase the revenue side by the 13,000 under your original motion, and then we'll just increase the revenue
Okay.
side, so it'll be a wash.
I don't amend my motion.
And then I withdraw.
Sorry,
I withdraw my second, because if we're gonna add things in, let's figure out everything we're gonna add in and give the man one number.
Well, I think what we're saying is that the number that I proposed, the 25,727,911, increases by 13,000, but I think what Dave is saying, that as a policy decision, he will correspondingly increase revenues by 13,000, finding those revenues as a transfer from the cable fund, so the net to the tax impact will be a net zero.
If that's
That
the policy
increase.
direction.
But
that's
what I
correct.
heard you suggesting is that you wanted to keep the training coordinator. Where's that $65,000
I
going
think-
to come from?
I think that we've just gotten advice to take that maybe as a second motion once we
It's a
determine the
separate
budget.
So do them one at a time?
That's a separate budget. That's not the operating budget, that's a special revenue fund budget.
So when we get there, we have to deal with that one.
Right.
So if I want to add anything additional into the operating budget, I need to do it now.
Right.
Right.
So if I want to ask him to amend his motion, I have to ask him to amend it for what I want him to amend it to.
For the operating budget, that's correct.
Okay, with
Okay.
Okay, now that I understand,
So the current motion we have on the table is for an operating budget of $25,727,911.
Right.
all right, give me a minute. I thought we had a little bit more time here on all this. Mr. Chairman, before I second it, can I ask the town manager a couple of questions?
Certainly.
Dave,
Yes.
if I want to keep the planning secretary as part-time, how much money do I need? I'll have to amend this motion. Okay.
So I need you to restate your motion.
Why don't I get all the numbers, let me state one motion? If that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
I don't
I'm trying to
understand
be-
why we
I'm
can't do this as part of the discussion of the motion, and then we can amend the motion if we need to.
I
but
don't
it's-
understand either. I'm just doing as I'm told.
Okay, so we need to remake the motion.
But if I can give him a new number
Okay.
that he agrees with, he can make that motion, and then I'll second it, if I agree with it. And then, I'm sorry.
Okay. We're getting there.
Is it worthwhile to take a couple of minutes recess and let them work the numbers?
Yes, I'm due.
Yeah, it's about 42,500.
Okay. Okay, so what I'd be asking Counselor Dolan to do is amend his motion. I'm going to include in two other
To
additions.
amend it, he just needs to make a motion.
So, Counselor Dolan, if you're going to be making a motion, I'm going to ask you to make a motion for 25,776, comma, 411, adding in that on top of the $42,500, an additional $3,500 back into the old home day budget, so that it's one of the only customer-facing events we have all year long. And then add $2,500 in to Meg Seymour's election budget, because she seems to be operating on a shoestring over there and getting more demands than she possibly needs. So I'm asking you if you would entertain your new motion for $25,776,411. Excuse, yes, that's correct.
So you're adding 3,500, 2,500, and 42,500?
Correct. I forgot my math right here.
And that equals a flat tax rate?
With the understanding of the money coming out of the cable budget to pay for all of this. I mean, if we're gonna go there, let's go all the way there.
Okay, guys.
I didn't yet agree to go there.
It's, if you don't wanna make that motion, Tom, I'll make it.
Sounds like, why don't you make the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we increase the budget to 257,76411, with the understanding that 42,500 and 3,500 and 2,500 will come out of the cable budget to fund those areas.
I have a motion. Margaret, did you get that? Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion. And the number is 25776,411?
Yeah, I'm checking it right now.
Discussion.
Well, the reason I asked Dave for a breakdown of the duties of the administrative support function is because we had questions that were brought up at the last public hearing. And it's been my experience that administrative support is an area that most of the private sector companies have been working down as technology has increased the productivity at that level. So what Dave's proposing not only makes sense, it's probably long overdue when you look at the fact that we had 3 full-time administrative support FTEs. He's proposing we go to 2. Those 2 individuals have approximately 80 hours a week that they can allocate to a total of 5 to 6 meetings per month. And in addition to that, issue some permits, handle some customer service requests, et cetera. I don't think we should be adding back in any administrative support based on these numbers. And more importantly, Dave said he's looking to create a position that would assume the customer service request, kind of a central focal point, which would offload from these 2 individuals who are left. And he also said that the realignment will be reviewed in subsequent fiscal years. Now's the time to make this administrative reduction. It's not the time to add back in. I am opposed to doing that.
I will mirror what Michael said, and that's pretty much what I was going to say.
Tom?
I understand what John wants to do. I'm becoming increasingly anxious about the pull on the cable reserve fund. I'm really not crazy about going there in the first place, and I'm like I said, swallowing hard going along with it this year. If it was my preference in another time and place, I would be recommending that we don't touch that fund. But I sense that amount of, so that's 42.5 plus another 6,000, 48.5 plus another 13. So, a little over additional little over $60,000 pull, plus the recommendation I made before, that's about 70,000, so we're talking $135,000, $140,000 pull from the cable fund. It just seems a little too high. If we were to find the money elsewhere in the budget, I think that would be more palatable to me. I'm not sure where to find that.
So, Mr. Chairman, my reasoning behind it is that if we're going to save a position in the cable studio, which has been demonstrated to be a customer-facing position that interacts with the community, and to use words that were used earlier, that we are possibly sitting on 2 of the largest developments maybe in the history of the state, and the governor has decided to get behind helping us fund Pettingill Road so this community does not have to fund it and take the risk the state will. The other customer-facing position is in the Planning and Economic Development Department. We have reduced to part-time in the Assessing Department, which is also a customer-facing position. We've already taken out another customer-facing position in the Clerk's Department. So what I'm saying is that at some point, these are our customers. If we're going to generate more revenue, we need people in the customer-facing positions. I'm in favor of a flat tax rate. If you're uncomfortable taking it from the cable piece, I completely understand. That's my explanation behind why we should do it. I respect your decision either way, but I want you to understand my reasoning.
Okay, any other discussion from the council? Okay. I appreciate your explanation of what you were trying to do there. I believe that that's honorable approach for the issues that you outlaid. However, I too don't see us, I don't want to, if we had, another 65,000 that suddenly came in, I could see making, using the money for that, but I would like to see us stick with the budget that Dave proposed, and which was the 25,714,911, with the understanding that the 13,000, we would have to come up with that somewhere else, and then that budget, so that we assure a flat tax rate. I would be open to further discussions on what Tom was saying, as long as it was a one-year commitment for the position for the trainer. You understanding? But we can't, I can't compel a future council to change that in the future.
That's a separate issue right now.
But that would be my request if we went that way, to make sure that that would be part of the discussion for next year.
So for the trainer, does the trainer $65,000 have to be added into the budget number?
Into the sewer, I'm sorry, instead of cable.
It doesn't need to be going to the number you need.
It goes into the second number I need for
Well,
special.
I'm going to amend my motion.
We have to
Not
make
this
a
one.
decision tonight, but not as part of this motion. That's the next motion, because we have to motion the special revenue fund.
So I'll amend my motion to, where does the 13,000, we want, the 13,000, you're looking for that to come from someplace else, or just?
Mike?
Just a point of clarification, I was kind of hoping Don would speak up. The Budget Committee gave some direction. Now, it doesn't mean they're an advisory body, and their advice was to find that in the police, fire, and library budget. Am I correct?
Yes, that was absolutely the direction of the Budget Committee, and I did not speak up at the time because it was, as I understood, the discussion between the 5 people on the council. But absolutely, yes, unequivocally.
I was, in the back of my mind, I could have sworn that's what you guys said.
That was exactly what we said. We said with the budget as it was, we suggested strongly that the $13,000 be found elsewhere, but that we lived within the flat tax approach that the committee had taken.
Thank you, Mr.
But
Chairman.
if I find it in the cable fund, that's okay too.
Well, that becomes a totally different issue.
Right.
And I think a totally
they
different
never
discussion
discussed
for a
that.
different time. We've not discussed that issue to any extent. I could only address it from a personal perspective, but I think that would be inappropriate here.
I'm just trying to get clarification so I can amend the motion.
I just wanted to establish that, because I don't know if Tom realized that when he made the initial motion to grab the 13,000 from the cable fund.
Well, my initial motion was to do additional
Yeah, yeah,
taxes.
got it.
And
Okay.
I've backed off from that and
Okay.
said that
Okay.
additional 13,000,
So
keep the
let's-
flat tax rate.
Let's try this. What I would ask is that we actually take that 13,000 from the cable fund, and the 3,500 for Old Home Day, and the 2,500 for Meg and her elections, and amend the budget number, and Dave, tell me if I'm doing this wrong, to 25,727,911. With those additional funds, and with the understanding those additional funds coming from the cable fund, that'd be the additional $19,000.
My math tells me that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that it needs to go up an additional 6,000. So it'd be 7,
My apologies, you're correct.
25, 733, 911.
I amended to 25,733,911. Thank you for that. I only wrote 13,000 when I did the math.
John, what were the increases again? 13,000 and what?
13,000 that Tom has been discussing and proposing to refund Old Home Day to $10,000 for $3,500, since it is the one customer-facing event we do. And to give Meg the proper staffing she needs for the elections, give her an additional $2,500. She doesn't even feed these poor people dinner, and we keep them there for, 20 hours. So that's what I'm asking. That would also include a primary year that she has to cover.
Makes sense.
I'll I'll amend my second to accommodate that change.
Okay, so,
And that would keep the flat tax rate if
So
I
it's-
made that motion correctly.
so just $25,733,911.
Right.
Correct.
Discussion.
Yeah,
I'm having a
Go ahead,
little-
you go first.
All right. I'm having issues with just starting to, go down the merry old road of let's pull from the cable fund. So while I understand what John's trying to do, Dave, as a town manager, we're looking for another 19 grand. Can you recommend another place other than the cable studio fund to do that? Would you require more time?
I'd rather say not tonight, but.
If I may, before Dave answers that, if I can address Councilor O'Keefe. Sometimes when somebody wants something, such as keeping their trading coordinator, sometimes they gotta give something. And that's how come I'm going down that path.
Okay, I'm understanding now, clearly. Okay.
I don't, I'll go out on a limb, and I'll be burned on the cross on a website later tonight.
Any particular one?
Why, by nameless individuals, why do we have, all of a sudden, a compelling reason to increase the Old Home Day budget from what they used last year to put on a wonderful event, and they could do again this year? I don't understand this. What other groups do we not give money to if we give money to this group? When last year kind of proved that group does a wonderful job with the budget we gave them, and we've heard no testimony up to this point otherwise.
Frankly,
So there you go. I'm gonna get-
it's a longer, better fireworks show, and I like fireworks.
Yeah.
There's my explanation.
It's not compelling enough for me to do it.
Well, then don't vote for it.
I know, I'm just trying to establish, it came out of nowhere.
You're the guy that ruined the fireworks.
I'll back him up on
I won't even do it anonymously on a website. Come on, Mike, laugh, it's funny.
5 days of programming's not enough for the community, I guess. Maybe it's me.
All right. Let me go.
No, go ahead.
I don't want to add either of those back in. I realize that, they're customer-facing positions, but I don't want to add either of those back in. They haven't been discussed up until this point. The only thing I think we should consider is the $13,000. So I won't support this 25,733,911 as one counselor. Other counselor discussion?
Yeah, I won't either.
So I
don't think
you
Tom has
Yeah,
any.
Tom's can go first, obviously.
Well, it sounds like it's an uphill battle at this point. So I guess, facing reality here, I think that perhaps what we can do, John, I understand what you want to do. So what I'm thinking is perhaps we could, well, let me back up. First of all, the most important goal that we've set, and we set it back in the spring of 2010, was to try to achieve a flat tax. So we're just about there. So I think trying to keep our eye on the ball, that's the most important thing, and I think we're at the 1 yard line. unfortunate football
That
reference,
didn't work
I'm
out
sorry.
too well yesterday, did it?
So you recommend we need an interception?
So,
How about an onside kick?
I think that these other issues, I think are, aren't that important. But, so I think that we could, John, Sean, and I, as we cross the line into the next council, we can perhaps lean on the town manager to adjust some of the items in the bottom line budget to redirect some small amount of money in those two directions without increasing taxes. I think in the 25 million, we can probably move 6,000 around. As I think, you're right, I think that we have to pay attention to who our customers are and how we deal with customer service. So what I would recommend we do is we go back to the 25, 727, 911 number, which only accommodates the additional 13,000 that the Budget Committee is looking for. Keep the zero impact to the tax rate by doing a cable fund transfer of 13,000. And leave it at that.
So what's the number now? Is the number 25,727,911?
Yes.
Yes, but you need to amend your existing motion to
Just
do
want
it.
to make sure I got the number right there.
Sounds like we're on the same page.
I will say that, I agree with, we can go find the money. It's an awfully silly exercise we just went through just for, but it's very,
think so.
it's very enlightening, let's just say. So I'll amend my motion to 25,727,911 with the understanding that the $13,000 is coming from the cable fund.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second discussion.
So Dave, does that have to necessarily come out of the cable fund? Or is there another place that you could probably take it out of?
If you're looking at revenues, I'm not comfortable increasing any of the revenues, given the current state of the economy. So if it's out of the cable.
I'm not increasing revenue, I'm looking for $13,000 that I don't want to pull out of the cable fund.
We'd have to go out and look at the expense lines, take a look at them.
Motion on the floor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Well, Mike looks like he's thinking of something. I'll ask a question. Tom, where did the proposal for the training coordinator come into this?
It doesn't. It's going to be a discussion after we
Okay.
take a final vote on this number.
Okay.
I think I'm happy that we're holding the line. I think that there was, this has been a very long budget season, very painful, and the fact that we're ending up at the goal that we had set last spring with the help of the Budget Committee, I think that I'm pleased.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, and I'm, like I said before, I'm very appreciative of the support the Budget Committee's given us this year in a very challenging time. They gave us their support with one caveat, which is to add back in that social service money, which I agree with. They suggested the town manager look in the expense lines of a couple departments. I'm fine with it coming from the cable fund, if that's what the consensus is here. So the number that you have right now on the table with the 13,000 is fine with me, and the flat tax rate is what I was looking to achieve up to this point. And if you guys are comfortable with taking that from the cable fund versus Dave finding it elsewhere in the expense lines, that's okay with me.
John, any other comments?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. My only comment is, for the purposes of bringing it forward, I would go with the consensus of the council as well. I do remember the Budget Committee, they did mention a couple other things other than cable. I think it's worth looking at that as well. They were, if I recall correctly, it was police, library, and something else to split it.
Police, fire, and
the 13,000.
Police, fire, and library.
So it would have been, quick math, a little over $4,000 from each of those budgets. So, but if it gets us there, I'll go with the consensus of the board. All right, any other comments from the council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Abstentions? Chair votes affirmative, so it passes 4-1-0. So our bottom line budget is...
Oh, hold on a second.
What?
So, hold on now.
You
So
voting now?
this is for our recommendation
The operating budget.
This is what,
for town meeting?
For the third.
The final public
for
hearing.
the final public hearing.
Okay, so this isn't the
just to
final
clar-
budget, that'll be, okay.
The final public hearing
All right.
is February 3rd.
He needs to
Right,
post a number for
He
that.
needs to post a number for that.
Okay.
What'll go to town meeting is what comes out of that February 3rd meeting.
Okay.
Correct, Dave? There's only one shot at that.
That's correct.
Right, there's no
Right.
future hearings or anything else.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So we have 4-1-0, Council, okay. All right, so that's the budget part. So Dave, what's the next item? We need to talk about the special revenue funds?
Next item is special revenue fund. Staff recommends sewer, $4,579,758.
Okay, that's the number you had in the little
Right.
handout you gave us?
Outside details at 465,315. And cable operating at 301,491. For a total special revenue warrant article of 5,346,564.
Okay. Can you give me the cable one again?
301,491.
Can you take them all at once?
So is this the one, is this where we had to bring up what Tom was making?
Okay, so Dave has given us the numbers for those special revenue funds. Do I have a motion?
A motion for the town manager's revenue numbers in total.
Okay. Do I have a second?
What was the motion again?
The
A
motion,
motion for the numbers he read.
A second for discussion.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
So,
Tom?
Yeah,
I did my
would,
part before.
At the possibility of repeating myself, I would like to increase the cable expenditure by the salary of the training coordinator. I think we're talking 75,000, so that would bring it back to 376.
That number would be 366,657.
366,657. So that's an increase of approximately 65,000 to the proposed number, with that additional money not to come from tax rate, but to come from the cable reserve fund. With the intent, not commitment, but with the intent, that's a one-year expenditure, and that staff would be reduced from 3 to 2 in the next fiscal year upon the director's retirement.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second that for discussion.
Okay, so just to make sure everyone understands where we're at. We had a motion for the total number, and now we have a motion for amendment, and Sean just seconded the motion for the amendment.
Right.
Discussion on the amendment to the cable special revenue fund. And it was, just to clarify, the amendment was to change it from $301,491 to $366,657. Is that correct?
Dave, is that how we should proceed with this?
Right, cable from 301,491 to 366,657.
Okay, so discussion on the amendment for cable. Tom?
The purpose is, given the testimony we received and given the knowledge that we have about what's happening, also with the thought that we are going to be able to achieve the flat tax rate, again, keeping our eye on the ball, that is the most important thing. And we are, given the fact that we, given the hope that we don't see a lot of change in the next series of public hearings, that this is a one-time, a one-year change, fix, in order to keep us from exiting the talent that we have, the current talent we have, that would, I would think that we wouldn't go from 3 to 1. We're gonna have to hire back in, retrain it's an unknown, bird in the hand type thing. And we did hear an awful lot of testimony about the value of this employee. It wasn't lukewarm, it appeared to be overwhelming and sincere. And so I'm responding to that. I mean, I've commented earlier that we heard a lot of public hearing, a lot of public comment during the public hearing, and that had some impact on my thoughts on this issue. Like I said, we're not increasing the tax rate, and we are preserving an asset with a one-year delay, with the knowledge, a couple things have to happen. One, the next council has to embrace this philosophy, no guarantee they will, and the cable director follows through on her thoughts about retiring. It doesn't mandate, she could change her mind and not retire. That's going to be her decision. So there's some assumptions in there, but with those assumptions on the table, that's the purpose of my amendment.
Okay. All right. Other comments on the amendment?
There's one more assumption in there. We've received testimony that the current services cannot be done by 2 full-time employees. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that perhaps they could be full-time employees, and I think that's why the intention would be to reduce from 3 to 2 full-time employees the following year. I guess
Yeah.
what I'm looking to do is try to bridge, to retain the, from what I understand, extraordinary talent that we have currently. So I'm just trying to create that bridge to get to that point where it's 2.
Yep.
I can tell you that that's where my head will be next year. I know you won't be on the council. I will be.
How do you know that?
I'm sorry. I'm assuming that. That's another assumption.
Well, you told us you weren't running.
Right.
Are you saying you're reneging on your decision?
All right, let's keep it
Have you
focused
changed your
here.
mind?
I might change my mind.
Yeah, I think we could use a little levity here. Thank you.
So, I mean, that's what my head is. I think you're right. I think it should go to 2. I'm nervous about it going to 1.
Yes.
And then having to bring back, and then we don't know what we're going to get back. And
Yeah. Believe it or not, I fully understand what you're doing. I actually support what you're doing, with the understanding that we received testimony that it can't be done with 2 full-time people. That should be established, because I believe it can. So we'll see if it plays out.
and I expect that you'll be sitting there holding me accountable.
No.
All right, I'm all for it, as long as Dottie gets Comcast to sponsor the fireworks. I'm good.
Great idea, actually.
My,
I like it.
Thought it was sort of interesting.
Tom, I think you bring up some great points about the retention of talent, and, so we don't, through the transitional period, Dottie retires. My only thing is, I've made it no secret that I will not be sitting up here next year, and I'll state that. Unfortunately, everyone from the press left, but I will not be running again. So I'm looking to the 3 of you to give me your word that, you will focus on that for next year, so. John?
I'm just looking for the fireworks. I'm good to go.
So I would support your amendment. So, any other discussion on the amendment? Sean?
I'll chime in. Yeah, I guess that came to light when we were in the discussions of it, and once the director had said that she was planning on retiring, I think that kind of made a lot more sense to us to maybe look at trying to do something with that, because obviously that's going to put us at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to losing an employee that is already trained and has been trained and understands how things work and does a lot of good things, going by a lot of folks out here that have been testifying to. And I also think that taking it from the cable fund is accomplishing something that I'm sure quite a few of the people that have testified would agree that it's a good idea, because you're actually utilizing the fund for a cable entity. And I think that that's what they were driving for us to try to do. So I'm all for it.
Okay. Any further comments on the amendment that Tom made? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of Tom's amendment to change the cable from $301,491 to $366,657, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, so that passes 5-0. back to the original motion, which was, as Dave stated, however, as amended by Tom. Any further discussion on that? John? Sean? No?
Not really.
Tom? Right? Okay. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor of the amended motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and the motion passes 5-0. Okay, so Dave, that's the special revenue funds. What else?
Right. Either three separate motions or one, it's up to you folks. Expendable Maintenance Trust at $200,000, Caliper Reserve Funds at $325,000, and Master Plan Non-Caliper Reserve at $50,000.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that covers all three, Mr. Chairman, for a total of $575,000, as presented by the town manager.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative. And the motion passes regarding the expendable maintenance, capital reserve, and master plan, non-capital reserve funds. Okay. All right, so that's,
We now have the posted budget for the final
Okay.
public hearing. The next is your second public hearing.
so folks in the public, you have another chance, and that'll be on February 3rd, I believe.
Right.
Yes, February 3rd. There will be the final budget public hearing here at 7 PM. Okay, moving on with our business, what I'm going to propose is we take a very brief 5-minute break, and I mean 5 minutes, and we're going to come back and we're going to open a public hearing to talk about bonds and the permits and fees. Agreed? Okay, so we're taking a 5-minute break. 5 minutes, folks.
The rest of the members coming?
Okay, we're going to come back to order. We are missing, actually, we're missing two counselors. We got a quorum, so we'll go ahead. Yanis, I will turn it over to you. I hear you have a brief.
2-minute presentation?
I have a brief presentation
5 minutes.
for the
But we already...
benefits of the public.
This is regarding the, so this is, oh, wait, before we do that, I do need a motion.
Yeah, motion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman, to open the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion to open the public hearing in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative. We are now in public hearing 3-0, and note that Councilor Farrell and Dolan were out of the room during that vote. Okay. Oh, yeah, we better talk about that. So I will turn it over to you, Yanis.
Good evening. Okay, my name is Janusz Strzelski. I'm Public Works Director for the Town of Londonderry. And I think all of you are very familiar with my presentation for the roads, but for the probably benefit of the public and people who are still watching on TV, I have very short, maybe 10-minute presentation to ask you.
She just said 5 minutes.
I said 2.
Well, I'm glad that Mr. Farrell is back because I'm ready to.
Mr. Belinsky is not a very nice person. I've said it in public. He asked me to say it in public.
Okay.
Good. Probably anonymously, as Mike stated earlier.
Please continue, Yanis.
So this year proposal for the bond for road construction for $1 million is consistent with a 6-year CIP plan adopted by the town. And I hope very much that the town council and the budget committee and later on voters will support this article so the Public Works Department can continue with the road construction. In 2007, the estimated construction cost for badly deteriorated 50 miles of roads in town was approximately $25 million. You see that's the red one on the chart. The $25 million also included improvements to the intersection like Stonehenge, Bartley Hill, South Road Culvert Project, Gilchrist-Hardy intersection, Boyd Parmenter intersection, Stokes Bridge replacement, and improvements to South Road and Kendall Pond intersection. We know that Stonehenge, Bartley Hill, and Litchfield Road intersection was just completed by the state, and that cost will cost before the town only 1/3 of the cost of doing that. South Road Culvert Project will be completed in 2011 by state, and they'll be completed with a section of the road, and they will pay 100% for that. Since the implementation of the CIP and approving bonds for the road reconstruction starting 2008, Public Works Department stayed pretty busy, upgrading many of our town roads. And we continuously trying to stretch the Highway Division, stretch the funds, and the Highway Division undertakes the reconstruction of the roads that normally are not being done by highway divisions, but mostly being contracted to the construction company. And many of the sizes of the projects right now we can't do ourselves. We have to, go to the contractors. Within the last 3 years, we upgraded 16 roads, and you can see how many roads we did in town, or section of roads. We did Bartley, Bunker, Clark, Copperfield, Crosby, Judy, Laurel, Londonderry, Mount Vernon, Poplar, Willow Lane, sections of the roads that you see over there in the slides. We also upgraded quite a few major drainage improvements. Now, we also finished a reconstruction of intersection of Route 28 and Page Road with $1 million of stimulus money. Another is not here, but I would like to give him credit because he was going to get the grant for that, and it was a good grant because there was very little string attached to it, and we were very lucky at that time because of our money was $1 million, and we got that. So almost entire construction cost was covered 100% by by our money, and then 2/3 and 1/3 was whatever was engineering, contract administration, and all that. So this was a very beneficial project for the town. This project was managed by, I was a project manager because it was municipally managed, and I'm proud to tell you that it was on time and under budget. Also, for 2012, the town of Londonderry will receive approximately $600,000 from the state as a block grant money. This money is usually put for the shim and overlay, tree trimming, guardrail repair, pavement markings, and crack sealing for all 180 miles of roads. Over the years, you know this chart, over the years, road pavement becomes brittle, and it should be every 12 years should be overlaid. However, the money that we get only for the shim and overlay, and in this year, because of the reduction in our budget, it's only going to be $320,000 allocated for shim and overlay. That will allow me to overlay only 2 miles of roads. That put us in a 90-year cycle. This is not a very good news, because it will be you will see the deterioration in our roads. For fiscal year 2012, Public Works Department right now has absolutely zero in the road reconstruction line. So it is very important that I want to show you that this brings us back to 1996. That time, town of Londonderry did not put any money, whatever state was giving us the block money. This was that time, $300,000. We are going back to that year. As you could see over there, those little, lines. Then I convinced town selectmen, please at least double what state is giving us. Put that in the budget, because we will pay for this dearly. You see those lines increased. Then CIP was approved in 2007, and you could see the fat lines right now. There were the bonds, there were the 1 million point, 1.5, $1 million. So you could see how it started to work. However, right now for 2012, we're going back in a budget. So I'm very hopeful that you will vote to put this article on a ballot, and we'll be able to, to convince the residents to, to vote for that article. Today's cost, also, I want to show you that if we don't, I don't want this to happen what happened in Bedford. Look what they had to do from 2002. They spent 2003, then, $12 million. They spent, in the last 8 years, $30 million for road reconstructions because they ignored it. And there are still a bunch of roads over there that you can't drive very well. And we were behind before, even with Derry. When Derry, even from 2002, spent almost double what we did. And if you go back in the previous years, I know Mike doesn't like to compare us sometimes to other towns, but this is good. In the previous, from 87, Derry already was way ahead of us, spending 16 when we were, spending only $6 million for road construction. So it's very important to keep the maintenance of the roads. Otherwise, we will really pay dearly for later. Today's for reconstructing the road is the same chart. $310 for linear foot. For partial reconstruction, $250. That's pretty good change for, for mile of road. $1.6 million, 1.3. Now, the most recent estimates that we have right now in the roadway management, it's that $9.4 million. So you could see that 25 was reduced. Why? Because a lot of the greens ones were done. The major ones, like intersections that I was pointing out, Bartley was in that $25 million, but that was done by the state. Only 1/3 was ours. But you could see I eliminated quite a bit from that chart. So yes, we are going the right direction. And if we skip 1 year in a budget, it's maybe, we can survive it. But at least I hope that you will vote to support the article so we can, get that $1 million for road reconstruction. Otherwise, so that you could see that $9.4 million. And you all understand this chart, that's a live chart, that yellow is going to turn to red if we don't maintain that one. And it's not staying fixed that way. And now, the zero funding for roadway rehabilitation prohibits me to implementing any management program, which, should address full spectrum and maintaining every section of this chart. Town of Londonderry if you look at today's prices, has investment over $200 million in our road as a total infrastructure. And I fully understand that now economy is bad and it's tough to, dump the money somewhere, but not providing funds for road reconstruction, it is, to me, like leaving our kids and our future generation with the infrastructures that they will have to pay. We don't hesitate to give them iPod for Christmas, but we're not going to put the money into the infrastructures that they will have to pay dearly for it. And maybe it's easy to take for granted because, today we can drive for it on those roads. But even nationwide, when you look at what is American Society of Civil Engineers graded our infrastructures from bridges to, to roads to wastewater, we need to invest in the next, 5 years, $2.2 trillion to bring our infrastructures. Our major bridges are falling down, killing people. So I think this is kind of like using the wonderful infrastructures that our grandparents built for us, not maintaining, and leaving our kids with a bill to maintain later that house. So it is tough. Aging infrastructure, lesser funding, and I understand that maybe 1 year we can survive, but we can't just doing this and leaving the burden to a future generation. So I strongly recommend that you will support this article, and the voters will have a chance to vote on the roads in March for that $1 million. And if I'll get that $1 million, I'm looking that I'll try to jump to Auburn Road to do the section near the Wilson Road, that intersection. There are several sections of Leachfield Road. At least I would like to go from Kelly to Laneway and fix that one. There's problems over there on that road to continue. I did the one section from going west from Lane. Mohawk is falling apart pretty bad. It would have to be repaired. So this is the presentation, probably less than 10 minutes. So I appreciate if you vote yes.
Thank you, Yanis. Dave, just for clarification for the council, what are we looking to do tonight? Is this whether to move this forward to town meeting, or is it to go forward to a public hearing? What exactly are we, we're in a public hearing now.
Well, the statute encourages you to take a final vote at the end of the public hearing. But, obviously, if you vote on it tonight, you can have a second opportunity to take a look at it at the February 3rd hearing.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
and the language would be similar to what they have in previous years. So it's, it's $1 million, raising another $48,000, undesignated fund balance to pay for the bonding costs and the first year's interest.
Okay, so there would be no impact for fiscal year 12?
That's correct.
Bond. Okay.
That's correct.
Well, if I know,
Comments from council?
I was gonna say, if I know Janos, he'll be at the door on election day, so beware, everybody. He will be there to pitch his case and tell you all about it. So I'm fine with taking a vote tonight, because it's not gonna change, public hearing's not gonna change. I definitely think we need to support this. I do agree with him. I know it's tough to pitch any kind of bond in this economic time, but the fact is by having his staff do it, it's gonna save us a lot of money than just going out and bonding stuff for other, companies to put pavement down, so I think it's a good idea.
Other comments from the council? Councilor Farrell?
No, I've always been supportive of the bond and everything. I am going to have a conversation with you offline about a road here I found that's back to 4000 BC and hasn't been redone yet, but we'll talk about that later.
Hey, you would put 400.
I'm just kidding, please.
If you put back $250,000 that I just lost for the budget, I will find the money for fireworks.
Wait a minute. Yours just went up 250?
No, I'm just saying that, no, we lost in the budget, I lost. What a minute.
Councilor Dolan?
I'd like to hear from the Budget Committee and the public.
Okay. Yep. So no comments. Budget Committee, questions?
Yeah, just some things that may be helpful, not so much as a question for people who are trying to figure out whether or not to support it, is things to factor in are how many other bonds are coming to maturity and what the table or the schedule for those coming to maturity. In other words, so many bonds over the years, they've come to maturity and now they're phasing out. So you bring in a bond, a new bond with new principal and interest payments year upon year to maturity. They may be, it may be a neutral impact to the tax if you have another bond that's come to maturity or close to it, that overlaps, so it kind of offsets, so people understand that they need to get a feel for, okay, what's going to impact me in terms of my taxes? It may be nothing, or maybe neutral, because another one might be going away. The other thing to keep in consider here is the rates. You're not going to find interest rates much cheaper than they are right now for bonds, so, I mean, it's cheap money, so to speak, for the town. There's another factor to consider, and just, so impact to the tax rate, offset by other bonds that have already coming to maturity, and I'd highlight the interest rates. Those are key factors that people need to consider when they're making a decision when they go to the ballot box. That's something I just throw out there.
And construction costs, we saw what happened with the Page and Route 28. The prices came way lower than, we expected and estimates were there. So that was like $1.1 million for major intersections.
Sue, did you have a comment on what Todd asked? No? Okay. You made eye contact, I wasn't sure. Mark or Lisa? Dan? Okay. I'll go to the public. Anyone from the public have any questions regarding, or comments regarding the bonds for $1 million for road reconstruction?
One resident left, said he's good.
Meg's a resident. This is Kat. Okay, I'll bring it back to the council.
So we need a motion to place the bond on the ballot? Is that what we're looking for?
Yes, I believe so.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to place the bond on the ballot. Any discussion? I just have one very brief comment. That's driving home from work. I come through a town to the south of us, which will remain nameless, on Griffin Road, and it's pretty clear when you cross the boundary from that town into Londonderry, based on the quality of our roads, and I'd like to see us keep doing that, so.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, the chair votes for it. It passes 5-0, so we will move that to the warrant. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We're still in a public hearing. We have one last item. It's permits and fees regarding a $15 landlord agent registration fee. Dave?
The legislature established a new state law which requires the owners of most rental units to list their agent, which may be themselves, with the town clerk within 30 days after either passage of the law or 30 days of purchasing the property. And the statute also allows the town to establish a reasonable fee for maintaining this information. Our recommendation is to have a filing fee of $15, which is consistent with a lot of other recording fees, and this public hearing is required under 4919-A.
Okay. So are you looking for a motion from us, or is this strictly?
I'm looking for a motion to authorize us to establish the fee of $15 to register landlord's agents.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion from the council? None? Dave, my only question is, so this is a new law that the state legislature passed.
That's correct.
That something that didn't exist before, that now we are required to keep this information.
That's correct.
So we are basically just establishing a permit fee that's consistent with other permit fees that we.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. My only comment to that is, I wish we had some state legislators here. But, you're passing laws that now burden the or citizens with another fee that they gotta pay. But we have to maintain it, so I think it's only fair that we charge some nominal fee so that we can maintain it, so. This is a public hearing. I will go to the public. If there's anyone from the public who has any questions regarding the landlord agent registration fee? Certainly.
You have to keep it to 3 minutes.
I will, I promise. Unfortunately, media is not here, but it would be very important that this information gets out there, because this was brought to my attention, There's not anything even the Secretary of State's office was aware of until I called them to find out what the statute would be. So it's very important that people realize that this law does go into effect January 1st, and it is important that they register, because if they don't register and there's a claim against them, they could receive a $1,000 fine. So that's how important it is for them to really make sure they come and register the information with the clerk's office. So I
Okay.
just want to make sure people realize the importance of that.
Okay, what exactly would, like, who would need to register, and what information do they need to register?
The owner of the property, if they're not living at the property, if they're living within the state of New Hampshire, their name, address, and phone number is what has to be recorded with the clerk's office. If
Okay.
there's somebody that's an outside agent that lives out of state, they have to have a contact person that lives within the state of New Hampshire with their name, address, and phone number listed as, they list themselves as the owner, but the actual contact person of a New Hampshire state resident.
Okay,
So anyone renting a dwelling,
Anybody owning property,
so if you
like
own,
if I owned a rental property and it's 6 tenements, and I live in Manchester or I live out of state, I have to register with the clerk's office in which that dwelling is.
now Mick, if someone owns a single condo or townhouse and rents it out, do they have to register?
It doesn't get into that detail.
Okay.
As
usual.
The usual, it's like the usual vague thing we get.
There's three exceptions. One is owner-occupied, 4 units and under. The second is single-family, which is a condo, unless you own more and rent more than 3 single-family homes, and single-family homes owned by foreclosure, by a bank. Everything else needs to be registered.
okay.
Thank you.
Is there any way we could put something in the newspaper or so forth to?
Sure, absolutely.
okay. Public notice of some sort? Okay.
Thank you. I just
All right,
wanted to.
thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Do you have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, so it passes 5-0. Okay, I would like a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and we are out of public hearing. Moving on to new business. We have one order of new business. It's an order 2011-01, if I may have someone read. John? you have it on
Oh,
the screen.
absolutely, I would love to. Order 2011-01, an order relative to expenditure of maintenance trust funds for various projects. Reading is today, oh, wait a minute, this was read 1/3/2011, that's right, and we moved it to tonight.
Right.
Hoping to adopt it tonight, 1/17/2011. Whereas voters since 2003 have approved funding for the maintenance and repair of public buildings and grounds in the town, and whereas expenditures have been made for various projects, specifically roof, HVAC, electrical, and miscellaneous repairs at Leeds Library at a cost of $4,586.66. 2, electrical and diesel pump repairs at Central Fire at a cost of $635. Fire alarm system repairs at Town Hall at a cost of $759.96. Now therefore be ordered by the Town Council of the Town of Londonderry that the Town Treasurer is hereby ordered to expend $5,981.62 for the aforementioned repairs and improvements. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second from Councilor Farrell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Order 2011-01 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative. And the order passes. And I will sign that. And Margot, I did change the dates on the top to the 17th, so. Okay. That concludes new business. I'd like to move on to approval of minutes. We have the minutes of the council's public meeting of 1/3/2011.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as published. I did not see any reason to update or change.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of 1/3/2011 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative. And the minutes are approved. Moving on to other business, liaison reports.
The January 12th planning board meeting was moved to January 26th, and my understanding is that there'll be a number of people coming to speak about the new Woodmont Commons project. Nothing else.
Okay, I unfortunately was not able to make the library trustees meeting on January 5th, I believe it was, so I will hopefully attend the next one in February. And I had no other meetings.
I had traffic safety today. Didn't have much on the agenda, but we had a meeting nonetheless, and there was really nothing to go on.
Conscom meeting last week, did spend a considerable amount of time in non-public, but can't discuss that now, but still very active and very topical. Put it that way.
That's it. Mike?
Yep, we had a very productive meeting with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee this past week. Beautify Londonderry Planning, guests from the Alert Team and Indian Pathfinders who've both stated an interest in taking a more active role in that, which is always wonderful to hear. More importantly, the anti-litter subcommittee was discussed. Dave provided the committee with a draft committee charge, which was very helpful to the committee. They've received several individuals have stepped forward saying they want to participate. So much so that the Solid Waste Advisory Committee will be holding a public input session on Thursday, February 3rd, from 7 to 8:30 here at Town Hall, and they'll be advertising that and looking to garner interest from other citizens who want to participate on the committee. So things are moving forward very well on that regard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. One little thing, I was invited to attend the grand opening of the McDonald's on Route 102 on Saturday, so I went to that. It was very, very nice. A little short ceremony. The band played the national anthem, and they raised the flag, and they had a little ribbon cutting. So that was nice to see, you know, that business in town expanding. So it was good to see. So we'll go on to town manager report.
Yeah, just very quickly, please check your schedule for February. We have a public hearing on the 3rd, and our regular meetings are on February 7th and the 14th, because the 21st is a holiday. It's President's Day.
Can you go through that again?
Yep,
The 3rd is a
February-
hearing.
February 3rd is the final public hearing.
That's a Thursday.
2 regularly scheduled council meetings will be February 7th and February 14th.
And Valentine's Day, all right.
And did you
That-
call
are
our
you
wives
kidding
and
me?
get that cleared?
I'm sorry?
Did you call our wives and get that cleared?
Married 30 years, so you know.
Either way, either way, I would be in trouble because the 21st is my anniversary. So,
Or the 14th then.
yeah, we'll go with the 14th.
Okay.
I think we should move it to your anniversary.
Yeah, that'll go over well. 24 years for us.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
I'm still alive.
Dave, do we need to, when we adjourn, do we need to go into non-public before we adjourn?
At least a non-meeting, just to
Okay.
talk about
Very good.
collective bargaining.
So we'll just adjourn the meeting and then, okay, do we have any, we don't have any board committee appointments or reappointments this evening? Right,
Motion to
so-
adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.